Welcome. Does everybody have a seat that wants a seat? We got some standers in the back. I understand. I'm a stander. Great. We're missing somebody. Is she? We're going to do a quick roll call. Grace and Brittany. Just you? You're the... I don't know what it is. Okay. Student representative roll call. Mr. Nava is present. Mr. Connection, welcome back.
Thank you.
Mr. Neely, myself, Mr. Porter, Mr. Heberly, and Mr. Freitas. Welcome. We're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Nava, could you lead us?
Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to give an update on closed session. An appointment of a new program coordinator has been approved. Mr. Nava made a motion. Mr. Neely seconded it with a vote of 7-0. Aaron Church is the new program coordinator effective 22-23 school year. Placement of non-public school student. Mr. Neely motioned, Mr. Porter seconded, and student number 56 was passed at a vote of 7-0. We're going to move on to a moment of silence. I'd like to talk about two very special teachers that we lost. Welcome, LEA, first of all. I'm going to start with Julie Ming. Passed away unexpectedly on March 17th, occurring to Principal Jamie Kite-Polinsky. She was an extraordinary educator who made Westwood her home for the last 22 years. In that time, the effect she had on students, parents, staff, and the entire school community was profound. Please join us in extending our condolences to her family, her students, and the entire staff at Westwood Elementary. I understand before we take a moment that there's a colleague of hers that would like to speak. Welcome.
Thank you. My name's Dory Dennis. Good evening, Dr. Washer, President McFarland, and members of the board. Julie Ming was my colleague for 10 years. Westwood was her home and it was mine as well. We've been friends for 20 years and I echo what Mrs. Kite-Polinsky says about Julie. She was a powerhouse. Her laughter would fill the room and she sure did laugh. She had a huge smile and a big personality. I want to say that one of her biggest strengths was that she would provide a mirror for her students. It didn't matter what their background was, she would always be that teacher that taught them to care about themselves, because then they could take the reins in their hands. I spoke to another colleague today about that. At Westwood, you either wanted to be in Mrs. Ming's class or you were a little bit scared to be in Mrs. Ming's class because you knew that she was going to hold you to task, and she did, and she changed so many kids' lives. She went out to recess every recess, and that was not even an issue for her. She was out there bonding with those kids, and she knew, like Laura Rodriguez said today, that those little moments meant a lot to those students. She was always present and in the moment with her friends and with her students, and students would come back and come and see her. I'm married. You know, I got that career that you knew that I wanted and I'm doing well. Or they would come back and say, I screwed up. Please help me. And they were okay doing that because they knew that she would point them in the right directions. One of her sayings that I absolutely love, and she could say it to us adults or to the children in her class, she'd say, so how's that working out for you? And it works in any situation, and just that little thing. Julie Ming and Laura Rodriguez at Westwood, they were doing classroom transformations way before we went to the RCA Academy. They had their Gold Rush days, they had their Native American days, they transformed their rooms into a witch's cave so they could work on descriptive writing. So I'm definitely going to miss her. She's putting a big hole in Lodi Unified and in all of our hearts. So I want to just end by saying, know that you are where you are not by chance, but by the design of your Creator, for your development and for the development of others. And she did that for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go on and talk about Charlotte Fry just for a minute, and then we'll have a moment of silence for both of them at the same time. Charlotte Fry, began her teaching career 19 years ago at Needham School. She passed away on March 2nd of this year. According to Principal Sonia Reinhold, every child should be blessed with the opportunity to be cared for, nurtured, and loved by an educator in her classroom. Please join us in extending our condolences also to her family, her students, and the staff at Needham School. Those are both lovely words by both principals, and I know their colleagues probably could give us more. So at this time, let's have a moment of silence for both losses. Thank you. Well, this is a terrible segue, but we're going to move to public comment. I apologize, it's the way the agenda is. We'd like, when we start public comments, to have the speaker state their first and last name, and that's not because we can't read these slips, it's because we have somebody who's working on minutes while we work through this. 20-minute time period has been set aside for the public to address the board on items not listed in the agenda. Each public speaker shall limit his or her comments to 3 minutes. The board cannot engage in dialogue about public comments because of the restriction placed by the California Brown Act. Just so we're clear, if anybody hasn't been here, the solid green light is on for 1 to 2 minutes. The flashing green light means you have 1 minute left. When it turns orange, you have 30 seconds. When it turns red and beeps, your time is up. And it will rotate through each person, so it doesn't start till after you state your name. Am I correct on that, Michelle? Okay. We're going to start with, I'm going to call somebody to the microphone, and then I'm going to name 2 other names so we can be ready to go. We're going to try to get as many in as we can in 20 minutes. So, Ann Suela Garcia, are you here? I thought I saw you. Welcome. Before you start, I would like Kelly Hamstrom and Maria Alpich. Thank you. If you both can be on deck, as we like to call it. Great, thank you.
I have gum. I went to Rick's Pizza.
We won't tell your students.
I have Ann Suela Garcia, Julia Morgan Elementary. Hello.
Hello.
I have been a teacher in Lodi Unified for my entire 32-year career. During those 32 years, I've been entrusted with the lives of almost 1,000 children. I have been entrusted with their education, their safety, their physical and mental health, as well as their social development. I've been entrusted with students during safety drills and during active lockdowns. I've been trusted to take students away from campus on field trips, including multiple day trips for science camp. I have been part of these students' lives during life-changing moments such as their first school experience or their first experience away from home and family. I've also been there for the birth of a sibling, a divorce, or a death of a parent. As I think about these moments and challenges during these 32 years, it leads me to believe that you, my employer, must trust me. You must think that I'm a reasonable and responsible adult. You must think that I am thoughtful and intelligent. You must think those things, or you would not entrust these children to my care. And so it baffles me that we are still having an issue with the management of our personal time. Our bargaining team is asking the district to provide flexibility in absences and leaves. The district will not budge. If you trust me with the lives of children, why would you not trust me to manage 10 days of personal time a year? Am I not reasonable, responsible, thoughtful, and intelligent? Please direct the district's negotiators to make changes on our personal time contract language that allows us to be the employees you know you have. This change will go a long way to show that you value us and you see us for the responsible, reasonable, thoughtful, and intelligent people that we are. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Dr. Washer. It's been a while since I've come and spoke. It's probably been about 2.5 years. I've been a frequent visitor here. Ann was my first teaching partner, so I also talked. And can vouch that she's very thoughtful, as are all our teachers. I've been here so long that I remember when we had interest-based bargaining and we liked each other.
Right.
And lately, when I hear our bargaining reports, it seems like our side presents something that we would like, that doesn't cost anything, that's reasonable, that's easy for you to say yes. But we've retained a lawyer, and you say no. We ask for something else that's reasonable, very minimally costly, very easy to say yes. But you, with our lawyer, say no. And I just spent the weekend, 3 days down at State Council, and I talked to so many teachers who are very happy with their administration, with their school board, and we all love teaching, even though this is an incredibly difficult year. In my case, it's much harder than it was, and I thought it was horribly hard when we had to do distance learning and keep everyone engaged. Now I'm dealing with their souls have changed.
Right.
And it's so much harder because it's never about curriculum. But anyway, back to us. I don't understand why every time you don't even pretend to negotiate. It's always just no. And you don't even give, how about this instead of that? It's just no. And in my mind, negotiating is going back and forth until you find a sweet spot for each other. Do you not have any sweet spots for us anymore? Otherwise, don't waste our time by saying, let's negotiate, let's bargain, because we really don't want to give you anything. That's the message we're hearing. And we're not really asking for much. Maybe you want to go to an out-of-state funeral. Maybe you want to go to a wedding. Maybe you want to, in this time.
Graduation.
Yes, your children's got college graduation, taking your child off to college. These are all things that are reasonable. You give us the 10 days just to be sick. We can't leave town. It's not very reasonable. And all we ask is that when you come to the bargaining table, you open your minds to possibilities. I never tell my children no unless there really is no other option.
Thank you. Before you start, I'd like to name the next two, Megan Riley and Rebecca Pisano.
Good evening. I'm Maria Alfici from Oakwood Elementary School. Good evening, Dr. Washer, President McFarland, and members of the board. I'm here tonight to talk about the LCAP goals that we discussed a few weeks ago. It was said multiple times that we need people. We need people to work with students. I couldn't agree more. Today's dollars for today's students. Does the district have a plan to get these people while we're in a teacher shortage? If not, may I suggest trying to entice people to want to come to work for Lodi Unified School District? Competitive salary and working conditions are always the ways to get people that our students deserve. We have a large pool of teachers to choose from. What line would have to say to teachers choosing between Stockton Unified and Lodi Unified? You know, it might sound like this. Well, you know, while we understand that a teacher will make about $10,000 more in Stockton Unified, and we understand that Stockton Unified has better contract language, but you should come work for Lodi Unified instead. Happiness and money are way too overrated. Now, come on, is that really the message we want to send? We want those teachers to come here. We really do. Lodi Unified has not seen a salary increase outside the cost of living adjustment for almost 20 years. Now, I'm going to repeat that because we keep getting this confused, I think. Lodi Unified has not seen a salary increase outside our cost of living adjustment, not raise, in almost 20 years. This is a small step forward in getting people that we need to create the best learning environment for our students. If the district has a different plan to get people to come to work for Lodi Unified School District, we would sure love to hear it. We hear talks of recruiting and retaining, but without substance behind it. These are empty endeavors. We ask for less than 3% as a pay increase outside of our cost of living adjustment to retain and recruit highly qualified teachers for our students. Now I'm going to say one last thing on top of this. I wrote this speech before everybody else around us started getting their 10%. So we had a gap already. We were already considered the lowest paying teachers in this area. I took a pay cut when I came here to teach, 19 years ago? And I was okay with that because I was running away from my husband, but let's not go there. But I'm not okay with this anymore. I've survived. I love my community. I love the community that we've created. But if I can't keep up, if we can't keep retaining and recruiting those qualified teachers, we're gonna lose out. Our children are going to lose out. Right. Our children are not gonna get the teachers that they deserve. So now this is even more crucial. Seeing that everybody else is getting this hike and we're not, let's do something about it, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, welcome.
I wasn't the next person on the list. So
Are you Rebecca?
I am.
Okay. Megan, are you here somewhere? No? Okay, you're up. Go for it.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Pisano, and I teach at Creekside Elementary School. Hello, George. I have been in this district for about 8 years now. I actually live in Sac City. So I live in the city of Sacramento, and I drive here to drive to Creekside every day. And when I first started teaching here, the difference in pay from Sac City to here was my car payment. I made just enough to worry about that new car that I needed to get here every day. And since then, I now pay that much more in insurance on top of gas prices right now. So right now, I've got, my $700 in student loans that I pay every month. I've got the car payment, I've got this and that, and I'm passing all of these districts to get here every single day. And my husband asks me consistently all the time, why do you keep driving to a place that you don't feel valued? And I said, I may not feel valued as a teacher in the district, but I feel valued as a teacher at my school. The people that I work with, the teachers that I work with, are the people that really truly show me that I am valued. My son goes to school with me now. He used to be in Sac City, and I pulled him out because I believe so strongly in the teachers here at Creekside. And he comes to me every single day. He has not had a teacher this entire time. He has had a sub the entire school year. We have had consistent turnover for music and PE. We can't keep a person at our site for more than 2 years at a time. They consistently go other places. I think that that's really a disservice to our students, to consistently have turnover, to have unqualified teachers who are looking at better opportunities around us. So I really hope that you'll come to the table, and I really hope that you'll really take a sincere effort to really recruit and really retain the people that you have here, because every single one of these teachers right here has considered leaving. Every single one has considered leaving at some point in the last 2 years. That's a lot of teachers to lose to other school districts. Thank you.
Denise Hall and Julie Childress.
So meet me out. Hello, I'm Denise Hall, and thank you for listening to me. I believe that all of us here, every person that's up here, every person out there is here for the students. We want Lodi Unified to be the best district. We care about the students. But we want to stand out. We want people to be proud to be here. We want the teachers to be proud, the students to be proud, the parents to be proud. But we need to do that by you guys retaining teachers. You know, at my site, we've had an opening all year long. We need to get teachers here at Lodi Unified. We need you to pay them a fair wage, a competitive wage, and we need you to give a competitive benefits package It's just so sad. I've had colleagues, I'm not gonna leave. I love Oakwood, I love working with the students, but I have lots of colleagues that I really value. Every year, it's like they're losing money. Instead of gaining money, they're losing money because of the cost of insurance and, other things that have nothing to do with Lodi Unified. So that's my simple message. Please, please give a competitive wage and a competitive benefits package so you can retain these awesome teachers you have out here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hi, you're not Megan by chance, right?
No.
Okay.
No. Julie Childress.
Yes.
I want to talk to you about the stipend for master's and doctorate degrees. I have my master's degree, but I decided not to pursue my doctorate because I wouldn't recover the money that it would cost me working in the district. There hasn't been an increase in the stipend in 20 plus years. I've been with the district 23 years and I haven't seen an increase. I was happy to see that the district agreed to put it on the salary schedule, but when we looked at it, it was only $47 a year. Less than $4 a month for a degree that I spent thousands of dollars to get. Doctorate just went up $75 a year. These are the lowest stipends in our entire area. You're looking at Elk Grove, Stockton, Lincoln, Ripon, Tracy. We're not asking to be at the top. We just want to be in the ballpark with everybody else. To make it worth our while to spend that money to get those degrees. Now,
Doug, I can't read your last name. There you are. I recognize you now. And then when Doug's done, the other one that we have time for is Kimberly Freeberg.
Good evening, President McFarland, Dr. Washer, members of the board. I'm Doug Zelkin. I teach music at 6 schools this year. And as a music teacher, I have to watch about 8 hours or so of Keenan videos each year. And I would really appreciate that contracted day to complete those. All right, thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Washer and President McFarland and members of the board. I am Kimberly Freeberg. You've heard my voice many a times, but this is the first time I've been here in person in about 2 years. I've come to speak tonight about contract negotiations. Many of us sat and listened to the LCAP meeting, and we heard the board members speak about working conditions. Mr. Neely even said salary's big, but it's not the biggest. He's correct. Studies have shown that working conditions is number 1 and salary is number 2. How the district treats their employees speaks volumes. Respecting their time and not overloading them with extra work is essential to delivering an education system that has quality. Teachers spend over 6 hours in Keenan training videos that are to be done on our own time. Yet you refuse to pay us for this time. You refuse to use one of the 5 non-instructional days to give us the time to do this, and that would cost the district nothing. More and more work gets piled on, which in turn does not allow teachers to actually get things done for students. Respect teachers' time. Prep time is that. Teachers are supposed to be preparing for their students. We have lessons to make, student work to grade, and give feedback to students and communicate with parents, and so much more that directly influences the quality of education at Lodi Unified. I stand in front of you this evening speaking on behalf of my fellow teachers. We ask that you designate one of our 5 non-instructional workdays to complete the district-required Keenan videos. Thank you.
Thank you. Somewhere? Karen Jackson. Hi.
Good evening, Dr. Washer, President McFarland, members of the board. My name is Karen Jackson, and I've been a teacher with Lodi Unified School District since 2001. I wanted to speak with you tonight regarding one of the items in particular that is currently being bargained. At this time, employees accrue 10 days of sick or personal necessity leave with stipulations on how those days may be used. One of the stipulations is that there can be no travel while using one of these days. I want to share with you how this affects me personally. My first grandchild was born last month, and I flew out to see him during spring break. I had to wait until he was 5 weeks old to see him because of the stipulation on these of sick days. If I had flown out to see him when he was born, my choice would be to have unpaid days, creating a break in service, or lying about why I was out. I have the time available to take, but our current contract does not allow for travel if we want to use one of those days. For members of the community who are not aware of what having unpaid days means to teachers, unpaid days creates a break in service, and if this occurs within 10 years of retiring, we lose health care benefits upon retirement. I've put in over 25 years with the district by the time I retire, and to have to choose between once-in-a-lifetime events such as this or being insured as a retiree is unfortunate. Hearing the school board talk about the importance of teachers and the need to retain teachers, and then hearing that the district has no interest in changing some of these days to no-tell days is perplexing. The same son who just had a child is in the military. I keep a close eye on what is happening in Ukraine because, as all military moms and dads know, if the situation escalates, our kids may be deployed to war. If this happens, and if he is fortunate enough to get to, say, a day or two notice, per our contract, I can't go say goodbye to him, hug him one more time, or tell him that I love him. Instead, I'll be left praying that the next time I see him is in person and not under the flag. Thank you.
President McFarland, members of the board, Dr. Washer, I'm excited to highlight and spotlight a new member of our administrative team. She's not completely new though. She's been with us since the beginning of third quarter. Gina Lopez comes to us from Stockton, where she has experience as a principal at Commodore Skills. She also was a director who oversaw coaches in Stockton Unified. She was also had oversight of the Native American Indian Center in Stockton. And now she has decided to join our team, which I'm excited about. And Mr. Naga, you're not the only one who has involvement with basketball in Stockton, because formerly Miss Gina Rosen was a member of the Twin Towers at Edison High School. Now, it may have been a couple years after you were there. I don't know this for sure. However, she has joined us as the principal at Washington School, and she has filled a void, but she has filled it with enthusiasm, and I am excited to introduce you to her this evening. Gina Lopez.
Superintendent, Dr. Washer, board president, and board members and community teachers, hello. I'm super excited and thankful for this opportunity to be in Lodi Unified. Everyone has welcomed me with open arms. I'll highlight my assistant principal, Mrs. Barbin. As soon as my first day there, she bought all kinds of gifts and spirit wear and just brought me to tears, because when you leave a district that you've been a part of for 20 years, you know, it's really hard to do, but the transition has been so easy, like I said, because of how much people are caring and welcoming here. And I have to say that Washington is the best school. We have dedicated teachers, support staff, office staff. Every adult cares about every single student at our school, and I really appreciate that. Of course, I have an amazing director and assistant soup. And Robert Solly, thank you for the heads up on this district. Of course, he made the move first, and he said, you're going to love it here, and I absolutely love it here. So I look forward to improving student achievement at Washington. Thank you.
Board members, do you have any comments before we?
You gotta come back. She ran away from the hot seat, but
You're a chatty bunch, you can't just run like that.
Gina, welcome to Lodi Unified.
Thank you.
Did I hear, I guess it was Ms. Young say that you had taken over Native American at...
Yes, that was my last position. So I'm Choctaw Indian. My husband is California Indian. And
Oklahoma?
yeah, yes. Yes.
Cherokee from Oklahoma.
All right.
Well, it's good to have you on board.
Thank you. Yes.
Any other board members?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Gina, welcome.
Thank
Welcome
you.
to the best district in San Joaquin County and the state, by the way. Okay? I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad that Dr. Sally recruited you over here. I know that he had something to do with that.
That's great. That's great.
So it's nice to have you here, and I'm sure you had a real successful season at Edison. That's one of my alma maters a long time ago in coaching.
All right. Go Vikes. Yes.
E-house.
E-house.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Principal Lopez.
Oh.
You're Scott. Nice try. You didn't get to exit stage
I guess I
left.
haven't attended enough board meetings. I apologize.
Well, congratulations on your appointment. We're very excited to have you and the great things that we're hearing from you. Mr. Nava, they have a little wall that has a little graffiti on the back of it, and if you look closely, you might see Mr. Nava's on it, on the wall of fame over there at the house. And it is very well deserved, and as are your accomplishments. And the board agrees with you 100% that Washington Elementary is the best school and tied with all 57 other of our campuses. We have that great tie. But we appreciate your enthusiasm coming here and meeting us tonight. And if anything we can ever do to help out, please do not hesitate to ask. Thank you.
It's nice to see that not everybody's going to Stockton Unified, but coming.
I wasn't going to mention it.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. We're glad to have you here, and we hope that we can be as live up to the reputation that you're hoping for. So we hope George Washington and school enjoys you, and welcome. Thank you, Mr. Young. Dr. Washer.
Thank you. President McFarland, members of the board, I would like to introduce you to Megan Eddy, the Executive Director for the Giving Opportunities to Kids Foundation. She's working her way up to the podium. Please join us. She would like to share a little bit about Got Kids and let you know about some upcoming events.
Hello. Good evening, Dr. Washer, President McFarland, members of the board. Thank you for having me this evening. Thank you for your warm welcome. I am, as of November, sorry, hi. Wanted to make sure. Sure. I am glad to be here and introducing Got Kids. Many of you are aware of the work that we're already doing in the community. I am a new face of Got Kids, so I'm here to introduce myself to everyone and say thank you for having me. The mission of Got Kids is to support the children who attend Lodi Unified School District through a variety of means, opportunities, class experiences outside the classroom to help children explore, develop their talents, interests, and skills. We currently are re-emerging, as is everyone, from the COVID pandemic, and we are excited to be back in person. So that means we can actually be facilitating in-person programs, which is very cool because a lot of what we do is connection, it's relationships, it's helping children to navigate this interesting time in their lives. So some of the current programs we're offering, we're bringing back our summer science camp, which will be this summer from June 7th to 9th at Lodi Lake. And this is an opportunity for 4th through 6th grade students to experience nature, go on nature walks. They're gonna get some kayaking experience, some fly fishing experience, and those kind of opportunities. The WOW Museum is going to come participate and do some mobile science experiments, so that's an exciting opportunity for those children this summer. Also, we are continuing with the Keep Kids Connected program, which provides supplies for students to stay active, get connected with their friends, have some physical play, and so we are actually distributing some of those items this week to some middle schools and elementary schools. We are continuing our Cal Waste field trips. Cal Waste has an amazing facility in Galt that has state-of-the-art technology on recycling. So we're providing the opportunities for students to go experience what that looks like in real time and get them excited about, conservation and recycling with so much new stuff coming on and how we're sorting our trash and things like that. It's really kind of timely for them to be able to see that and experience it and get some knowledge before they become adults. The WOW on Wheels mobile classroom visits are going to return this year, and we are developing a week-long camp for middle school and high school students that focuses on life skills. So that should be something exciting we're looking forward to. We are also developing a program called Friends of Got Kids, and it's basically just a volunteer program that anyone can sign up to come help us in the work that we do, volunteer at events with children, or to help us do administrative things, facilitate all kinds of things. Nonprofit work is very hands-on, and so it's essential that we have volunteer help. And in fact, that's a great segue into my next topic, which is our Crab Feed fundraiser. We recently held a Crab Feed fundraiser. It was a very successful event on February 26th. Thank you to those of you who came, but especially thank you to those of you who came as volunteers. We had, I'm delighted to say, 110 volunteers. A good portion of those were Lodi Unified staff and students. They were amazing. They show up with smiles, with great energy, ready to serve, and we could not be more grateful for their participation and for their just assistance. We absolutely could not do this work alone, and so it is with a grateful heart that I am here to thank some of those volunteers. I apologize if I don't have everyone's name. I do have the names of some of the LUSD staff that came to help us. Now some of these are retirees, some are current employees, which is very lovely that these people are still compelled and called to come back and help us year after year. So thank you, special thank you to Nada Metcalf, Sheila Webb, Lori Tinky, Deanne Blyton, Marianne Ono, Ralph Ono, Beth Fox, Cindy Metler, Christopher Berry, Claudia Berry, Julie Winters, Miguel Vernis, and a special, super special thank you to three lovely ladies who do everything. They always go above and beyond, and that is Michelle Armstrong, Chelsea Von Geer, and Valerie McPhee. They helped me incredibly. They have answered so many questions, so many emails, and I couldn't be more appreciative of their support. I also especially want to thank the 42 Lodi Unified student volunteers that showed up on a Saturday night, most of these are high schoolers, to help us serve food. So not only did they get community service for their help, but we also donated the tips that were collected back to their student clubs for their edification in whatever way those clubs choose to spend those funds. So that's exciting too. Elizabeth Andrew wisely said, volunteers do not necessarily have the time, they just have the heart. I couldn't agree more. And I just want to thank you again for our volunteers for sharing your time, your talents, and your hearts with us. And speaking of sharing one's talents, one of the highlights of our crab feed is the wildly popular dessert auction. This year we had 14 baked delights vying for the coveted title of Best Dessert. And it was our own Dr. Washer's incredible lemon cake that earned the highest bid, cementing her place in Got Kids history with a decisive inaugural win. So this evening, it is my pleasure to present Dr. Kathy Washer.
It was a beautiful cake.
So in closing, I just want to say thank you so much for having us. Thank you to Lodi Unified for being a part of the work that we do. We couldn't have the outreach or the impact that we do in this community without the support and the encouragement and the help of Lodi Unified in all of its levels, from the students up to the administration. We are deeply grateful for all of your help and support. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Can you just wait a minute? Any board members?
Yes.
Mr. Nava.
Megan, thank you. Thank you for coming over here.
You're welcome.
Great report on Got Kids. My gosh, that's great. You are actually a professional person in regards to Got Kids, and we, as Got Kids, one of the board members, we're fortunate to have you as an executive director. By God, you have done so much work. And I don't think you sleep. You're here tonight, and you're late at work, because I've called at 5 o'clock and I can still get a hold of you. So thank you very much for your report and everything.
Thank you, Mr. Nava.
Mr. Freitas.
Thank you, President McFarland.
See, I'm going back and forth, you know.
Megan, thank you very much for that presentation. You know how near and dear Got Kids is to Lodi Unified and especially the board. In fact, I think 3.5 members of the board are on the board. Yes. So, this is very, very important work that you do. And what you give back to our kids is absolutely amazing. I may add, though, that we do have the Got Kids Art Show, which is coming up on April 23rd.
We do. Thank you for reminding me.
So get your entries in early and get them in often. It will be in person. It will not be virtual. It is hosted by Dr. Washer and a few other fellows and individuals. But we're very excited to see the artwork, have people back in person. It's going to be at Mickey Grove.
Yes. I'm going to bring my kids. I have 2nd and 3rd graders. We're going to come see the art.
Well, not only do you have 2nd and 3rd graders, but you have 2nd and 3rd graders in the district.
Do.
And not only do you walk, that you talk the talk, but you also walk the walk. You are a Lodi Flame, is that correct?
I am.
So.
Yes. Class of 97.
So, very, very proud that you've come back to our community and given back to the schools that you, in fact, grew up with and are a part of. So, we're very proud that you're continuing that tradition and creating new opportunities and new future directors of Got Kids.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to take just a brief moment before anybody else speaks to thank you. I've been to many of the events, and they are, as we all go to many, fundraisers. They're outstanding. All of them have been. I also, in a previous life, applied with my academic team at Tokay for one of the Got Kids Awards, and we did it several years. And so, while the process, I like a little bit of rigor with the process, so you can't just show up and ask anything, and there was dialogue back when you wanted more information. So I appreciate the process in which you distribute your funds. And I like that he went directly back to the students, and there was accountability back to the students and the people that were asking for them. So I appreciate that component of it also. Thank you.
Yeah, just real quick, Megan, thanks for coming on board. Got Kids has grown so much, and they've done so much. I remember at the very first meeting, we were trying to scrape together enough money and trying to figure out what we're going to do with that money. And it was tough, and so things have changed around significantly. You are the next part of that, and to take Got Kids to the next level. And you'll be bringing more to the district for that, and thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Neely.
Mr. Everly.
Thank you. It's really nice to be able to do things in person, like you had mentioned.
Yes.
Everything from having WOW on Wheels to our schools, it actually makes it quite a bit easier. You don't have to worry about fundraising for the teachers or the school site. You don't have to worry about transportation. You pick the subject, they come and do it, and off they go. And it's really a nice way to get the kids an additional science lesson or two. Also, a little plug for the summer camp.
Yes.
That is really a great event, and I do see a familiar face or two in the audience of our teachers that volunteer for that. Yes, I see you. And
we don't quite volunteer though. They do pay us.
Well, you know
but
what?
It feels like volunteer because it's 100 degrees.
And yes, it was hot. Well, I was only the lunch runner, so I could deliver and go back to my air conditioning. But anyway, it's a wonderful event. So you teachers out there, if you get any questions about it, Got Kids is a great organization to give our kids additional experiences. And again, thank you for all the help that people from throughout the community give us for volunteering.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a great organization.
Thank you for that reminder.
Yep.
Great. Thank you. Dr. Washer.
Thank you, President McFarland, members of the board. I do want to thank you, Mr. Freitas, for reminding us of the art show. I do have that down to share also. April 23rd from 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock will be the show, and then there'll be a reception following that time for the winners to receive their awards. It will be in the part of Mickey Grove that's the San Joaquin Historical Museum. And so you just kind of drive back, all the way back around the bend there and get there. It's a beautiful facility. I'm sure you've been there for other things. It'll be perfect for our art show. I want to thank our high school art teachers for once again supporting this event, working with their students to create amazing pieces of art. It is always a fantastic showing, so if you have a chance, please stop by to take a look. Also have some pictures to show you. The first one is from Rachel Flanagan, teacher at Elkhorn School. This is 4th grader, and I'm going to mess up the name, I'm sorry. Kao Nu received the prestigious honor of placing 3rd in the science division for grades 4 through 5 at the San Joaquin County STEAM Fair. His project was titled How Do You Prevent Rust? So congratulations to Elkhorn. Now you can give a cheer. We had over 25 students from our middle schools perform at the San Joaquin County Middle School Honor Orchestra, Band, and Choir Concert that took place at Delta College on March 5th. Students had to audition to be selected for this prestigious group. Many of our students came from Krista McCullough Middle School Band, so we want to thank all of our music teachers for give them a hand. It is quite the task to get students ready for that and to be prepared and all the practices, and I know that many of the music teachers go to the practices with the children to support them and help them. As a parent, I attended those for many years and saw many teachers working hard to help students achieve in those performances, and they are fantastic. Many of our students placed first chair for their instrument, so congratulations to our musicians. Manlio Silva Band and music instructor Kathy Evans, who reported this news, also thanks the board for reinstating elementary instrumental music 8 years ago, as the decision is paying off and greatly appreciated. So thank you to our board. It is on YouTube if you'd like to Google that and see the concert. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Washer. And we're going to move on to comments from student representatives. Who wants to go first?
I'll go ahead.
Great.
President McFarland, members of the board, Dr. Washer. We're looking forward to our prom. That will be on April 23rd. We have prom bids on sale. And we also have sign-ups going on for the American Red Cross Blood Drive that will be held at Lodi on April 6th. And for sports, we're already recruiting for next year. There was a football meeting today for those interested in playing, as well as a meeting coming up on the 5th next month for a cheer and tryouts to follow. Upcoming events, we have Powder Puff to be held on April 15th. We have a meeting this Thursday and practice will start next week. And that is for juniors and seniors. So that's what we got going on for now. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
How's your sports going there?
They're good. We got track going on. Let's see. What else we got going on? Swim, yes. Dive.
Baseball.
Baseball. We got all.
How about that golf?
Sorry, I'm like.
Is golf doing
right
well?
Sorry?
Is golf doing well?
Yeah, they're doing well. Everybody's teaming up.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Sorry, one more comment. The prom will be held at the Quad, so that's the new outside of the new campus that's being built. So it'll be all decorated. Our junior committee is helping run that. So it's a Christmas masquerade. So I'm looking forward to see what type of surprise they have for us.
Thank you. Grace, you're up.
Hello, Dr. Washer, President McFarland, members of the board. Our prom is next Saturday, the April 9th. Yeah, coming up very soon. We just opened up nominations for prom court and for king and queen. We also have a running promposal competition, so students have the possibility of winning 2 free tickets if they win the promposal competition. And other than that, we have a blood drive on the 26th. We're getting ready to do student gov and ASB elections. And our FFA program is actually selling corsages and boutonnieres for the prom, so I just wanted to mention that. Yeah, and we're also starting up Powder Puff. We're having our game the first week of May. And other than that, I just wanted to congratulate BC speakers Casey Ryan, Kaden Gilbert, and Jahan Jacobs, who competed in the national qualifiers over spring break, and they have spots to the national tournament in Louisville, Kentucky for speech and debate. And I also just wanted to acknowledge visual artists who represented Bear Creek at the McKee Student Art Exhibition, and they won awards at the Hagen Museum. Michaela Susana Vongfet, Mabel Seha, Daniel Anderson, and Nisela Aguas. And yeah.
Thank you.
ABC.
Any comments from the board? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Freitas got my attention first.
Great reports, ladies. Thank you very much for coming here. Always bright part of our meeting. Did you happen to see in the hallway when you're walking here that we had something new that in my 10 years on the board I've never seen before, that we have posters of our student reps. Did you recognize those? What are your feelings about these?
Yeah, they look familiar. I love it. I love that you guys are including us, making sure that we're being represented. So yeah, that's really awesome.
Yeah, it's just nice to feel seen in a way.
Well, we'll have to get your autographs on it, but we'll make them official at some point, right? And as we keep our student rep wall of fame in order. Very good. Any updates on, I think we've narrowed our college searches and what's going on, and what's the latest?
I just today got accepted to Boston Conservatory.
Oh my God. That was your second choice school, or yeah?
Well, it's a tough call between CSU Fullerton and Boston Conservatory. Just money wise, and just thinking logistically and like travel expenses and everything. But I got accepted into both of their musical theater programs, and I'm also accepted into University of Evansville. So and I'm waitlisted for UC San Diego. So some decisions to be made. We'll see.
Well,
Congratulations.
And you know what, I got to tell you, with all those decisions, rest your mind, you're not going to make a bad one. So it's going to be just, no, absolutely. It's going to be fine, whatever you choose. Congratulations. Yeah?
For me, I'm visiting Chico State and Sac State next week. I brought down my searches to those two and their acceptances. So yeah, just listing out all the pros and cons. My parents want me to go to Sac State because it's much closer to home. But Chico State.
You want to go to Chico because it's much farther away from home.
Maybe, but I also love the town, like a kind of hipster type of vibe. So yeah, hopefully we'll decide soon.
Well, and we know many people that have gone to both those colleges, and again, you have no wrong decisions in there. So this is a great time in your life. Just enjoy it, and getting there isn't half the fun; it's all the fun, without a doubt. So, congratulations! Nice reports.
Great, thank you, Mr. Reporter.
Oh, I just had a question on your powder puff. Who are you playing?
Powder Puff for us is between juniors and seniors. So it's like within BC, and
you're not doing like against McNair or anything like that?
no, yeah, it's a all-out brawl between the juniors and seniors at our school. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to volunteer Mr. Nava to be the referee, so. Because he knows a lot about powder puff football. And
That would be wonderful,
it'd be
wouldn't
great
it?
out there. Michelle should give her a camera.
Thank you, Mr. Nova.
Absolutely, yes.
Sure, you can referee.
Give me a call, I'll get the officials for you.
There we go. Mr. Nava, there you go.
I'll get the officials for them, yeah. I got people.
I was looking for you.
Great, thanks you to both of you. I'm hoping you're gonna.
Powder puff too?
Yeah, same thing. We're doing juniors against seniors.
Well, that's a little rough because the junior's supposed to decorate your prom, right? So if you beat them up too much, then.
Good thing there's a different committee for that. So yeah, they'll be ready to go against us.
Good question. All right. Great job. Thank you.
Great, thank you, and I'm hoping you'll stick around till you have to go. Okay, perfect. We're moving on to consent agenda A. We have 21 items. So we're going to start with, or do you have anything you want pulled?
A2.
A2, okay. Anybody else?
Madam Chairman, I move that we approve all these rest of routine agenda A items.
Okay, Mr. Nab has made a motion, and Mr. Neely is second. Anybody from the public want to pull anything? Yes.
I'm sorry. Did you say A1 or A2?
Two.
Could we pull A1?
Okay, Michelle,
sorry.
anybody else? Okay, moving on, we have a motion and a second. I'd like to vote on A3 through A21. We've got a first and a second. Yes, so we're going to call for the vote.
Student vote.
Oh, student vote, I'm so sorry. Hi, girl. A3 through A21.
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you. Board vote?
Are we possibly voting on the largest consent agenda
It's
A
big.
ever?
As I recall, yes.
That's the record.
And it passes 7-0. You know what we did pull one. I apologize. A1, Michelle. Michelle, you changed.
She did. She turned into Lana Gentry. I work at Bear Creek High School, and this is my 28th year in Lodi Unified. So I thought that consent item A meant you're going to do a report on the budget, and I would hear some of the things, the changes. But I was informed I could still speak. Okay, so I wanted to go back to the issue, and it won't be 3 minutes, about recruiting and retaining teachers. We're talking about the budget. And I want to say that I have mentored...
I don't think, I hate to interrupt you, but I don't think we can go back to that because this is about the adopted budget. Dr. Washer, can you clarify that for us?
Madam President, members of the board, this is changes to the adopted budget. This isn't like the LCAP or the approval of the next budget.
Got it. So her comments, I cannot.
These are essentially budget transfers that have occurred. That's all.
From
It's
one
already
to the other, from one account to the
from one account. It's within this current system. So does that mean I cannot allow her comment? It
She can
doesn't-
comment about what's on the item.
Right. If you have a comment about the changes, we can.
But I don't know what the changes are because when I looked at the agenda, they're not posted.
President McFarland, if it pleases the board, we have SBAC tomorrow night. If there are any questions, we can always include them on our agenda.
Absolutely. Would you like to join the SBAC committee tomorrow night to hear the changes?
Not truly, but because I'm here tonight. So that's okay.
Thank you.
President
We need to
McFarland.
recruit and retain. I'm mentoring teachers.
The SBAC is a go-to meeting. It's digital.
Correct. Wait. Go ahead, Michelle.
Good evening, President McFarland, members of the board. On it's really hard, Michael, on my phone. Could you pull up, I think it's the first page of the financial impact. I believe it's number 3 that I'm reading. I lost it too. It says establish the following budgets in accordance with the funding authorization. Special education, the federal preschool programs, special education IDA, ARP 610, 611, local assistance entitlement, and CSI. Is this a change from the preschool grant? Is this a change in the law that was changing for how we are doing our preschool into inclusion? Can you explain what those changes are?
President McFarland, this is a
Yes.
quick explanation.
Yes.
These are all budget transfers or their adjustments due to funding increases or decreases. I believe this is a funding increase to special ed preschool that comes into resource 6547 but I can check and get back to Michelle.
I would appreciate that. Michelle, was that?
Kind of, yes. The next on the bridge program where it, yeah, it's even smaller up there. I believe it's number 3 where it says increase the following budgets in accordance with the funding authorizations. So we're increasing the bridge program. Is this to increase for, thank you so much, for more students to attend, or is this with higher pay for the bridge program? If I may.
President Farley.
Yes.
I'll defer to Dr. Sally, but I believe this is the COVID increase to the after-school program.
Correct.
Okay, and then number F, the special education's preschool grant. That's an increase in the special education preschool staff development. Those are new things. We're increasing for what? Is this the grant that we are finally rolling out?
I don't believe it's new, President Farley.
Yes.
I don't believe it's a new grant. I think it's the, I'll have to check and I can confirm tomorrow night at SBAC, but I think it's the same increased preschool special ed funding that comes in on resource 6547. But I'll confirm tomorrow night.
Great.
Michelle's on.
Great. And I want to remind, Michelle, if you have questions and you would like to forward those to Mr. Connor on those, and you can copy me on those, I can make sure that you get those answers prior to our meeting, and then if you have additional questions, you can always come to the microphone and share those.
Yes. Respectfully, though, some of these questions are made in this public forum because there are members that want to hear the answers in public as to what's going on.
Absolutely. I am encouraging you to, once you get the answers that you need, you can also share them publicly. We have no problem with them being transparent. Thank you. We have a motion on the table from Mr. Connexa. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Nava. Student vote.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Call for the board vote. Board approves 7-0. Action item A2, I believe, Mr. Porter, you pulled that?
Yeah, I just have a quick question for Mr. Conlon, is it possible?
Yes.
Mr. Conlon, on number 1, you have Robert Tooney, is that correct?
Toomey, yes, sir.
Tooney, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
To provide construction expected services and so forth. Is this to get everything cleaned up that's over there? And because I know we've had a little quagmire with the concrete.
We've had the concrete contractor, the increment 1 contractor is still on site.
Still working?
We believe he will be done on Friday. No promises.
No, I'm not holding you to that because I know it's been thorny in your side for quite a while. I was just curious, is Mr. Toomey the one that's in charge of inspections on that?
He is DSA's inspector of record for all of your projects at Tokay High School. Well, really to DSA more than.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's just a quick question because I know that's been kind of a pain to get that thing finished.
I move we approve.
Thank you, Mr. Nava.
Second.
And Mr. Porter is seconding it. Student vote.
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you. Call for the board vote. Board approved 7-0. That concludes consent agenda A. Moving on to consent agenda B, student discipline.
Madam Chairman, I move we approve consent agenda B, student discipline cases.
Great, thank you. Students do not vote on this. So, Mr. Neely, I'm sorry. So, call for the board vote. Actually, public comments at all?
No public comment.
Okay. Okay. I apologize. Call for board vote. Thank you. And board approved 7-0. Moving on to other action items. I want to make sure I'm looking at them all right now. Got it. OAI 1, Resolution 2022-33, electing to be, well, I'm going to leave it with the number. It's too long. Mr. Khan.
Thank you, President
It's gonna add an
McFarland.
hour if I read them.
Thank you, President McFarland, members of the board, Dr. Washer. This is a formality that establishes the board as its own group, I believe, in order to purchase insurance. It really changes nothing at this moment. All it does is give CalPERS board permission to set the board up as its own individual group in order to purchase insurance or health insurance directly out of the CalPERS plans. I believe the first one is for any board member that is a current or former PERS employee, and the second one is for any member that's not associated with the PERS retirement system. The board may also recall a few board meetings ago, Director Shaw of Payroll brought the CERNA resolution that allowed us to set up the non-certificated CERNA employees as their own individual group in order to purchase insurance. Again, nothing changes other than this grants permission for that to happen.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. Any public comment?
Yes, and Mr. Khan and I did have a conversation about this prior to this meeting, President McFarland, and he explained exactly what kind of talked to you about. However, when we look at the language on the resolution, such as resolved B, that the employer contribution for each employee shall be the amount necessary to pay the full cost of his or her enrollment, including the enrollment of all family members in health benefits plan, up to a maximum of the PEMHCA minimum per month, plus administrative fees, contingency reserve fund assessments, and be it further, so forth. Then it goes on to say necessary to pay the full cost of his enrollment, including the enrollment of the family members, for a maximum of $1 per month. So as Mr. Khan explained to me, that they would be under a plan, and that their amount that they would be given would fall, say, under what the contract language is for retirees for teachers. But that's not how I read this. It sounds like this is paid in full for benefits, is how I read that. If I could have further clarification on that.
Absolutely, Mr. Khan.
So I believe, like any other class, what this states is that the employer is responsible for paying us CalPERS. What you do internally with your board member, your staff member, is up to you. So this obligates, just like with LEA, just like with CSEA, just like with LPPA, just like with management, this obligates the board and the district to make sure that CalPERS' charge for these plans is met in full.
So it is not resolving that the full cost of this is being paid for family members and the board for all health benefits?
Well, in essence, yes. The district is responsible for paying CalPERS directly in full. This language obligates the district to make CalPERS whole. But like any other employee, there will be deducts or due bills assessed depending on the level of the health and welfare cap.
And where would we find those exact caps? Because in the board policy 9250, we didn't see a cap in that.
Well, the CalPERS resolution won't identify any cap. The deal is, with this resolution, establishes a contractual relationship between the board and CalPERS. I'll have to see where the board's health and welfare cap is in any of its policies. However, there is statute that says board can receive the highest of any health and welfare benefit provided to any class in the district.
Okay, so it's not saying that it's covering the full cost of those benefits for board members in this resolution?
Yes.
Just legally speaking, it is saying that, but it is not in any way directly discussing the cap arrangement between a board member or an employee and the board. So the board's arrangement with individual classes or groups of people.
So would that be a separate document then?
No. I'm sorry.
No, I'm
So
confused too, Michelle, so thank you.
So I think Michelle is asking, so doesn't this obligate the board or to pay the full cost of the board's membership? Legally, yes. It is, CalPERS is saying we are only dealing with the board and you are paying us in full. If we don't get paid in full, we're not coming after the staff, we're coming after the board. That's all it says. So there is also the internal arrangement between board and its classes through bargaining agreement or through board policy with the board.
And so where would that be? Is there a rate sheet then for board members?
I'll have to get back to Michelle.
You can get
Okay.
that. Okay. Is that, do you,
So we do
Leonard,
find
can
this
you share that with
language
both of us when you get that?
confusing
Yeah.
for both 1 and 2 on that, as the language does say in the title, you know.
Does one set of language trump the other set of language, I guess would be my, does that make sense?
I'm sorry,
Because it's
no.
written one way, but you're saying that the,
I'm probably responding weakly, but I'll try and simplify. What this resolution does is ensure that CalPERS will get paid in full.
yeah, okay,
And
that's
that
the bottom
board
line.
is responsible for
That's the
paying.
bottom line, okay.
And that is it.
Mr. Porter had a comment?
I just, it's the fact that we have a contract with CalPERS, we have to pay X amount of dollars. We have to have contracts with our employee groups, which they pay their deductibles, which then this district then sublets. Everybody gets paid, but CalPERS has to be on the hook, making sure that the district's on the hook. And we make a contract with them, and then we have contracts with each employee group. And the language about what board members get is very clear in the contracts. If you look at the board and board what they get, because I've done a lot of research on this. We have X amount of dollars that we have to pay for whatever plan we pick that the teachers get. We get the same cap, so to speak. But we still, as a district, have to pay CalPERS every year. Okay, does that make sense? Just want good money. Yeah.
Yes.
Guarantee.
Jen Castle, Tokay. Mr. Porter says that it's very clear, but it's not very clear. If you are going to share those caps, it seems like a lot of people are interested in knowing that. And that is not easily findable. So I think the public would like to know that, and I think the public has a right to know that. When you have an action item with the word unequal in the title, it sets off some warning signals, it just does, okay? And I'd also like to comment when our president or any speakers that speak about an item are shut down and told to pre-submit questions. I believe that's a violation of the Brown Act. And that's not right. It's happened at 2 board meetings now, and it's not fair to prevent public discourse, which is the reason for this meeting. So I would like to point that out, that nobody has to pre-submit questions, and to continue to request that is a Brown Act violation. Thank you.
Mr. Porter. Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Nava. Okay. Call for the, I apologize, student vote. Aye. Board vote. Board approved 7-0. Action item OAI2, Mr. Khan.
Thank you, President McFarland, members of the board, Dr. Washer. Again, I won't repeat what I just said, but I will add that the language in these resolutions and the language for these board items comes straight to us from CalPERS. We don't edit or otherwise alter them. They are verbatim. The term unequal simply speaks to the fact that the board offers plans to retirees and to employees, and they are different in value. And why that needs to be legally included in here by CalPERS, I honestly don't know, but I'm not going to argue as a lawyer that it's good, bad, or indifferent. It just is what it is. So.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. Public comments. Mr. Hipperly.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. I was going to offer that same explanation. Having been involved with this kind of thing in my previous employment, it's their language, it's not our language, it's legalese, and let's face it, legal language is not always very clear, and it's not very explanatory. So, I mean, I totally get the ease in which you can look at this and go, what in the world? Does it mean this or does it mean this? I mean, that makes perfect sense to me, but I was going to say exactly what you said. Thank you for that. It is their language, it is not ours.
Thank you, Mr. Hipperly. Any other comments?
Madam Chairman, I move we approve OA12.
Thank you, Mr. Nava, and the second was Mr. Porter. Student vote. Aye. Thank you. Board vote. Board approved 7-0. OAI3, Dr. Washer.
Thank you, President McFarland, members of the board. We are excited to share information about our communication and marketing efforts. This is the district logo. Chelsea Bongier is here to share with you the process that we engaged in and show you some drafts of logos that went through the final process. Ms. Bongier.
Thank you. Board President McFarland, members of the board, and Dr. Washer, I am pleased to present you with the new proposed district logo this evening. What's before you this evening is a result of efforts undertaken by the district over the last several months since the strategic communication plan was approved by the board back in July of 2021. And I will note that I have 3 rebranding committee members here with me this evening. And so if Joseph Guardia would like to pop up here, that would be great to have him join us. And then we have Michelle Armstrong present, as well as Jesse Turner. And those are 3 of our 10 representatives from the rebranding committee.
What is it here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just in case you have questions for him. So following the approval of the communication plan back in July of 2021, we held a rebranding thought exchange. It was publicly held, so internal and external stakeholders could respond to it. The question that they were asked to respond to was what values or characteristics they would like to see reflected in the district's rebranding efforts. We had quite a bit of participation. We had over 1,200 participants, 449 thoughts, and nearly 13,000 ratings from this rebranding thought exchange. Some of the top themes that arose were diversity and equity, high quality education, community engagement and unity, as well as college readiness. Taking those results from the thought exchange, we convened a rebranding committee, and they included employee group representatives, 2 different students from Stockton and Lodi, as well as 2 parent representatives. And over the duration of about 3 months, the committee met and reviewed different logo sketches with the graphic designer hired by the district to come up with the district logo. And they determined the top 2 logos from original 6 logos that were then presented to the community back at the end of February through the beginning of March. The community had the opportunity to vote on the top 2 logos selected by the committee. And based on that survey, the second logo before you this evening, logo number 2, received the overwhelming number of votes. Over 80% of the vote was received for logo number 2. This logo represents the foundation of education. You'll see the book at the very, very bottom. And Tim Wynn, the graphic designer who developed this logo, is here this evening as well if you have specific questions for him. But I'll read you what he wrote, which was given to the community when they did vote, which is that logo number 2 represents the foundation of education. You can see the book there. It also represents the merging of diverse schools with the two different sides of the tree merging into one. And that represents the diverse schools, communities, and cities that make up our district. And then in the middle, you'll see the technology that's coming out of the book, and that represents the change and the forward thinking of education, which is technology driven. And the tree also represents elementary, middle, and high school. You'll see the 3 different levels, and at the very top, there's a capstone to represent the students going from elementary school all the way to graduation in our district. And now I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Kind of went through that pretty quickly.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you.
Mr. Neal.
How quickly can we change? To get this logo on our letterheads, on our website.
Okay, I wanted to make sure I understood the question before
Yes.
I answered. We are in process of doing that. I think it was 2 board meetings ago, the board approved additional proposal with Tim Wynn's marketing and graphic design company to do all of the letterhead and envelopes and business cards for all school sites as well as for the district. So that will be a 3-year process in addition and in conjunction with the 3-year phase rebranding project.
Okay, thank you. Can we ask the students?
Sure. I was going to see, any other board comments? Go ahead.
I hate to say it, but it's not that I dislike these. It's just they don't have a big zing in my head with these. I look at the one like Liberty High or the previous ones, I looked at those and went, I don't like that. I mean, that looked really sharp. And not that anything's seriously wrong with these, I just don't really care for them that much. So I'm sure I'm in the minority of it. It's just I needed to voice that, so I did. Thank you much.
Before I get any more student reps, would you like to weigh in?
I'll just put a short comment. I believe I voted for logo number 2, which seems to be the overall most favored one. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I also voted for number 2, and I'm pretty sure I have a slight bias in voting for it since a new ASB position we found was the Commissioner of Design, and she basically makes all the posters and all the flyers, the digital flyers and all of those types of things. And she came up to me and she was like, hey, like you should really consider voting for number 2 because my uncle designed it or something. And I was just like, that's very sweet. And even without knowing that, I was like, yeah, that is, I just think it's very clear in what it's trying to represent, so.
Great, thank you.
I think we call that in law conflict. So Chelsea, can we change the results to 5,746?
Duly noted.
Okay.
Great. I have a couple of comments. First of all, I think they're both very innovative. I like them both. The question that I had, and I shared with Dr. Washer, is we're in an agriculture valley. Grapes are what we do in Lodi. There's no grape anywhere. That has me a little concerned. I love the book. I love the graduation cap at the top. I love the whole theory of it, but I'm not sure if that's supposed to be a tree or a grapevine. And to me, without having a grape in it, and agriculture is our industry, and I like the technology component, but we're not a district that's known for technology. Maybe in 5-10 years from now, we're going to be, and we're merging towards that. We are FFA, we are ag, we are rural valley. And I don't get that from that logo. While I have nothing bad to say about it, it's very ingenious. I love the intricacy of it. To me, it just doesn't speak to Lodi and our farming roots here. Because while the tree is nice, is it a cherry tree? Is it an apple tree? Is it a?
What you see.
Well, I don't see a grapevine. Yes, but I don't see a grapevine, and to me, Lodi says grapes. And so, to me, this is a bit, and I'm old school, it's a large diversion from where we were, and I would like to see old logo, new logo merged. And if you look at the base of our industry in the valley, it is agriculture. And I don't get that from this. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know about any other board members, but it is really ingenious, and I like the theory behind it. Board members, any other comments? Oh, here we go.
I have to agree with Mr. Everly. Some of the work that's been done is outstanding. You know, some of the branding that we've seen for the schools has been great. This is very nice, but it doesn't grab you. Personally, I could be completely wrong. I'm not a very art individual. I think most of the stuff that's seen has been outstanding. But for our main logo, I would like something personally with a little more zing to it, a little more of our area. So I like what's there. It's good. It's not bad. It doesn't grab me. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not putting anybody down for their hard work or anything like that. I appreciate everything that's done. But I see other logos that have come up for each school, their brand, and they've been great. I think we have one tonight that's really good. Yeah. So that's my 2 cents.
Any other board members?
Yeah, I think we're differentiating the individual logo schools as opposed to a district logo. That's my, and I like it. I like that too.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we need to look at is where this is going to be. It's going to be on our website. You don't want something extravagant on there. We're trying to develop websites that are clean looking and easy to use, and that's the goal that we have. And this fills that. Also, when we start talking about going on letterhead and that kind of thing, you want something that, you know, doesn't distract from everything else. This is modern, it's clean, and I believe that this is the way that we should go, and I'm definitely going to support it.
Well, I want to agree with Mr. Neely. I'm going to disagree because I think it is clean. I think it's fabulous, but it doesn't say Lodi. It doesn't. And there you have it, men versus women. I'm on an island. What I'm saying is, I think it's fabulous, but I want it to have a smidgen of representation of Lodi the town, Lodi Central Valley, and that we're agriculture. I think I have no complaint with this. It just doesn't grab me the way I want it to. That's just my opinion. Okay, any other questions, comments, concerns?
I think it's fine.
I think Chelsea has something.
She has more. Go
Yes,
Chelsea.
thank you, Board President McFarland. Yes, I explained the process because I oversaw the process, but I think it's really important that you hear from the committee members on how they came to this decision. So if Jesse Turner wants to join us up here as well, I'd like to also let Joseph speak to his thoughts on it.
For logo 2, we decided, back in the survey we took, what was it, 2020, Chelsea?
2021.
2021. A lot of Stockton community members wanted to see more representation in the district as a whole, not as it showing what Lodi is. We wanted everybody to be represented. Our Stockton, Rockford, all of the little cities that are in our district, we wanted representation in the logo. So that's why we came up with our design for logo 2. All of our logos, actually, we tried to put in our little representation in it, but that's what we came up with.
Great. And Jesse, if you could speak to the print and ease of logo number 2.
Sure. Hi, members of the board, Dr. Washer, everyone. I'm Jesse Turner. I'm the Central Services Supervisor, and I oversee the print shop. So when I was looking at these logos, I'm looking at how we can print these, if they're going on letterhead, t-shirts, everything like that, the ease of them. And what we came to find was logo 2, we thought, when you look at the symbol of the books, when you have the technology symbol coming up, we thought it was a clean logo and should work great on any printing also. And he also has an additional little logo that's going to be Lodi USD underneath the book for more of a quicker one that can go on the left chest, things like that. And I understand the idea of the grapes. I mean, we've had the grapes. I mean, I've been here for 16 years. I've always seen the grapes too. And I think this is kind of pushing us forward in a different direction of, you know, we're moving towards Chromebooks. We're moving some way from textbooks. So I think this new image will give us a more of a brighter future heading to a new direction.
Great, thank you. Michelle, are you standing for a comment or just standing? Come on.
I like that it went out to everyone on getting their input. I think was not open enough to, once the two were out there, to give feedback on the two logos, from my understanding. I got lots of people who saw things in logo number 1 that was kind of really obscure, but nobody really understood in seeing this what that was coming out of the book. They could see the, graduation cap at the top, and so they figured that they were all student heads, but they were distorted. So were they grapes? Were they a different fruit? It wasn't clear, and I don't know, it wasn't greatly overly wowed, I think, by either of those. It's like kind of like to see kids or the grapes in the logo going forward. And I understand the diversity of straddling Lodi Stockton, but we also have a Campo and Lockford, and we have ag at all of our, basically all of our schools in some sense, starting at 3rd grade. So that has been a reflective of Lodi's history, which I don't know, it doesn't seem to be coming through in the future part. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Any other comments?
Madam Chairman, I move we approve this logo.
Oh, there's one.
Oh, yes.
Come on in.
Thank you, Tim. He's a parent in our district. He is also the owner of Acer Visual Marketing that is contracted with us to do all of the refreshing of our logos as well as our district logo.
Sorry, I didn't. I wanted to make sure I kind of heard all of the input from everyone so that I can address as much of it as I could. President McFarland, I believe one of the questions that you had asked or were concerned about was the fact that it really didn't show Lodi. And I kind of thought that was funny. Everybody said it does say Lodi. But no, one of the...
You see my struggles.
I do. But you know, if we can zoom in a little bit to just the Lodi USD one, Chelsea? Can we zoom in at all? So the, you know, obviously you see the book, the pages opening up, but that's also supposed to be symbolic of agriculture fields, right? So the green fields, you know, you know, a lot of the stuff, because you have to keep in mind that when the community voted on this, there was, you know, a lot of comments that needed to be infused into the one logo. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of kind of thought that kind of went in there, and we couldn't just have, you know, pictures of multiple students. So there was a lot of stuff like diversity, you know, progressions, and, you know, growth, and all of these things that the community wanted to see. So those pages not only serve as pages to the book, but also agriculture field.
Thank you. That does, I like that.
Okay, and then so as you can see, there's 3 rows. There's a row at the bottom which look more like leaves. So if you guys looked at that, as you move up to the next one, is a little bit more of an oval, and then as you get to the very top, now that perspective there is a little skewed, but if we move over here, as you can see here, these are supposed to be more, so there's 3 rows here. This is to be symbolic of the elementary, middle, and high school. So that's the 3 levels that we're trying to show as part of Lodi Unified School District. As you look down here, these look more like leaves, right? Because what that shows is that, you know, these are our students that we're growing, we're nurturing, we're helping to grow. So as they, excuse me, as they grow from here.
You're speaking to the board.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're
I was trying to
following
point to make sure that they understood.
that one right there.
Sure.
Following
You
you.
got yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
You're good anyway.
So this is supposed to be the elementary, middle, and high school. So that what that shows is the growth, right? The progression between the 3 levels that Lodi Unified encompasses. So as they grow, they start to shape, they start to mature, they start to turn into this student that is graduated, that's ready for the next level, whether it's college, whether it's going into the workforce. Diversity is another thing that that the community wanted to see. And so I showed that by having different shades, different shades in these leaves, if you will. So that's the show, that's the symbolic and the symbolism of why there's multiple shades there, with different shapes, different colors. That's really what encompasses Lodi Unified School District. And again, these two trees right here are combining into one district. This is not to show Stockton and Lodi. This is to show there's multiple cities that's a part of this Lodi Unified School District. So it's not just Stockton and Lodi. There's Lockford. There's many other cities that combine together. And one of the things that a lot of community members were saying is that we're in Stockton, but it says Lodi Unified, and so we don't feel like we're part of that. And that was my way of trying to mesh and combine everyone together. So again, there was a lot of thought, and the community, the committee helped a lot in terms of just giving input and going through this. I mean, there was, the community in general voted on 2, but there was like 6 or 8 of them that we kind of worked through, and even before that, there was 40 or 50 that I had to narrow that down to. So this isn't something that we just woke up and all of a sudden it just magically here. So I just wanted to share some of that because I know there's a lot of concern and a lot of that, there was a limited amount of space that we had in terms of the explanation of the logo, so we weren't able to put everything in there. I just wanted to share that with the board and with the community. So
Thank you, I appreciate that.
thank you.
Mr. Nava motions to approve, or makes a motion, Mr. Neely seconded. And we do student vote, yes.
Aye. And to clarify, you are motioning to approve logo number 2.
Number 2, because that was the one that moved forward, correct?
Yes.
Great. I'm sorry, call for the board, but I was looking at something else, sorry. It's not letting me. We have technical difficulties. This is when the music plays. I'm okay. It's over here.
It's me.
This time it's not me.
I got it.
Okay, so Mr. Heberly, and we have 4 yeses, and it passes, 2 noes, and 1 abstain. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, it passes 4-0. I'm sorry. Moving on, OAI 4. Dr. Washer.
Thank you. Sorry. President Carter, members of the board, another logo. This is for Liberty High School. So we can show you the picture if you'd like to see that. This is a WOW logo.
I'll go first.
Go ahead, Mr. Heberly.
My father always said, if you can be quick to criticize, you should be quick to compliment. I love it. To me, and I don't know, maybe it's easier because the schools have mascots and so forth, so you can bounce off of that. But there is no mistake of what that is. And I just worry about a logo you have to explain is troublesome to me. But I would classify this one as to the previous school logos that we had. I really like them. Well done. I approve.
But I'm on the one.
Mr. Freitas.
President McFarland, I think we have the principal of Liberty High in the back row.
Way in the back.
The amazing principal for Liberty High.
You have good eyes.
More
Mr.
amazing.
Freitas.
President McFarland, members of the board, Dr. Washer, I just want to extend my gratitude for this experience. When we first heard the logo thing would be coming on, I told Chelsea, put me first in line, I'm on board, we'll see what happens. And Tim came to me with several different logos, we looked over them, and I just felt like this really took the spirit of what Liberty does. We take kids from all walks of life that are not considered graduates, and we bring them on, we bring them pride, we make them ferocious lions to take on life. Where I say sometimes we do triage at our school. and we give them diplomas. And I felt like Tim really captured our spirit, our mascot, what our mission is, and made it look beautiful. And I'm really excited about it. So thank you so much for letting us make this happen.
Well, Tammy likes it, then I like it, so. Well, and she couldn't have said it better. My grandson graduated from Liberty, very proud to say, and he's on the aircraft carrier George W. Bush.
Wow.
And he's on the way to the Black Sea this summer, so. And we have Tammy and Liberty and Lodi to thank for that, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other board comments? Any other public comments?
Madam Chairman, I move we approve this logo. Beautiful logo.
Very much so. Thank you, Mr. Nava, for the motion, and Mr. Heberly for the, or Mr. Nava for the motion, Mr. Heberly for the second. Student vote.
Yes.
Thank you. Board vote. Board approved 7-0. Moving on, OAI 5, Mr. Warren.
President McFarland, Dr. Washer, members of the board. Previously, mental health services were discussed during LCAP ESSER plan discussions. It was discussed contract versus district employees. At this time, I'd like to propose that mental health therapists and mental health therapist intern district positions be created. Could you go and turn to the next page? Oh, thank you. So the rationale, of course, is to improve services and service delivery to students. Also, the ability to provide direct oversight to mental health staff, have a more stable employee infrastructure, less staff turnover, replace multiple agency mental health coverage. At this time, we have a number of agencies that provide different types of mental health service, and it's more difficult to oversee that. Also, the ability to build employee capacity. There are times that we've wanted to train different mental health employees. It's difficult to send contract providers to get trainings. Having district employees would help us to build that training capacity. And also better employee integration with district colleagues, and also increased access to district resources. Attached are the two job descriptions. Just for clarity purposes, the mental health therapist intern position, these would be the difference between a mental health therapist intern and a mental health therapist would be the licensure component. Mental health therapist interns are required to graduate with their degree and be registered with the Board of Behavioral Science. The intern registration is essentially a licensure waiver. They're just required to be supervised by a licensed person who's met certain criteria. That's the difference between, they're basically able to both provide mental health services. One has to be supervised until they complete their licensure process. Are there any questions or?
Any questions from the board? Mr. Heberly.
Is there any timeline that the interns have to complete their licensure? That's one question.
They have to accumulate 3,000 hours of direct and indirect services. They have to pass a legal and ethics test. They have to pass a clinical test. I'm trying, off the top of my head, I think they have like a 5-year timeline, but they can get extensions. So they have to turn in their hours, and then they can start preparing to take the different tests. But it's a very rigorous process.
Okay. Question 2 is, how are they supervised and or trained within?
So currently, our agency people, I've provided oversight to our agency people as far as working with them to kind of provide services the way that I wanted them to be provided in the district, we have embedded in the group, we have clinical supervisors who have met that criteria, who provide that for our interns. So in developing these positions, we would want to make sure that we would have people that were supervisor eligible people. Did I answer the question?
Oh, absolutely, yes, because what I don't want is for us to hire an intern and then they're in a vacuum. And unfortunately, I guess I can liken it to a brand new teacher that they go, hey, here's your classroom, and ta-da, you know, that's a tough assignment to not have some actual constant help and reinforcement and training.
Yeah, we've worked very hard to have different clinician, mental health therapists who mentor. With the mental health services that we provide, a lot of them are special education, and there are a lot of very specific things that they need to be trained in. So as they're learning how to write reports, those are reviewed by clinical supervisors who make sure that all the necessary components are in there. Sometimes they'll shadow them, go to IEPs, they'll work with them on how to integrate and work with different schools, and how the education, how mental health services work in the education system.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from the board? Mr. Neal?
How likely is it that we're going to be able to find people to fill these positions?
I think it's very likely. I think these are desirable positions. We currently have contract people. The nature of their contract would allow them to basically come over if that was, if they're interested in applying for the positions.
I have a little bit of a background in business world and putting out job requirements. And I'm a little concerned about page 3, when it lists the physical demands. I'm wondering, have we gone over this? I mean, we're going to pass it tonight. This is not a report item. This is something we're going to vote on. And I'm a little concerned about those physical demands on there. Number 2 says, see to read, prepare documents and reports, and view a computer monitor. Well, there are, I don't know that that's a realistic demand, and I don't know if that's a defendable demand. Has this been reviewed by an attorney? If we had our own attorney.
I mean, this was developed using other districts' language for similar positions.
And maybe we can all join in the lawsuit with them. Have we reviewed this by an attorney?
No.
I'm going to vote no on it until that is, and not for what you're asking for here. I understand that and I support that entirely. I'm not going to vote for something that I can see getting us into trouble a little bit later. So if you get that worked on, or if the board agrees to table it and have it looked at, then we can do that.
Mr. Neal, members of the board, you can do that. If you have some specific concerns, you can also take no action, and then we can, if there's no motion and no second, we can always bring it back. So if you give us direction to X, Y, and Z,
I'm going to tell my fellow board members that that really needs to be looked at on there, or we could be in trouble.
Real quickly, Mr. Neal, I would agree with you. When I looked at the physical demands, my background is in insurance, the first thing I saw is lift objects up to 25 pounds. It doesn't say repetitively, consistently, daily, hourly. The physicalness of it had, I don't have a problem with what it is. It needs a little more clarification under a workers' comp arena, and Mr. Khan will know what I'm referring to in that. I just think it needs just a small tweaking for liability and safety reasons for the employee and for the insurance component of it. Any other comments from the board? Mr. Porter?
Yeah, Mr. Warren, obviously, did you lift this from another school district, or is this something?
He's not gonna admit it.
I lift a lot of things from other school
And
districts.
there's nothing wrong with it. Why reinvent the wheel? I mean, I lift things all the time when I put things together. Is that what happened?
Yes, so,
So it's been vetted by other school districts?
yeah, so this has been vetted by other school districts, you know, and I
Kinda
can't speak to the
standard.
specifics of the legality of that.
No, it's kind of
particular-
standard though, that's out there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I wanted. Thank you.
Michelle, I see you back there. Come on up.
Boy, she's coming up.
Okay, he's gonna.
Yeah, I think there's a real need for this mental health services, and I'm in favor of it. However, if there's a big enough problem, I'm willing to put it off a week. You know, if we can clear up some of the concerns that some of the board members have. But I do think this is something that we definitely need to get involved with.
Thank you, Mr. Connexon. Michelle?
Thank you, President McFarland, members of the board, and Mr. Warren. This is great to see that we are branching out to include this kind of position within our district instead of contracting out and not having onus of them as employees and directed, as Mr. Warren kind of alluded to. I did have a couple of questions on where they would fall. I assume that they would fall like under LPPA, under contracts and stuff. I am a little, multi-funding was on one of the pages, so how would they be funded? Are they coming out of a certain area? Because it said multi-area funding, so maybe that can be explained in SBAC, I guess.
But maybe Mr. Warren, can you answer that question?
Yeah, if you wanna.
These positions would be appropriately placed in CSEA because they are not certificated positions. If it's not certificated, if it's certificated by default and this district falls within ALEA unless it's represented by LPPA. If it's not certificated, it rightfully falls within CSEA unless it's a supervisory position, in which case it would be under LUSG. These are not supervisory, they're not certificated. This would fall under CSEA. So if this is approved, once you determine this level of the service, then we would go to CSEA and bargain the remaining requirements with them.
Thank you.
Interesting, because we would certainly, as you know, LPPA, we would love them to be LEA, but the other part was with supervising that I think was kind of described. Who would oversee this group? And now that you threw out CSEA, I'm like, mind is off. So how would they be, who would supervise them then?
I would say at this time it would continue to be supervised the way it is. It's supervised under special education because they would still be providing, you know, in special education we have nurses and different groups
Right.
that provide both. So, I mean, my assumption is that we would continue to oversee them through special education.
Now with that being our own employee, would we teachers have to, or this mental health therapist have to get the same kind of sign off that our outside consultants have to get the parents to sign off on?
Yeah, there would still be the same consent requirement.
Okay.
So, I mean, even with all of the people that we contract, essentially when we contract with somebody, they're essentially like our employees.
Right, I just know that I've heard many teachers say, as soon as you bring that form out, the parent then shuts down and doesn't want the services, that open book. And I had always thought maybe if they're our own employees, there would be less of someone else is overseeing this. So just a curious question as going forward, how the students would be seen and parents would sign off on them being seen, because they typically don't have that rigor when they meet with counselors.
It's the nature of the service, not who provides the service.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. And I think we have one more question. Come on up.
I'm Christy Doherty. I teach at Lawrence Elementary School, and we have the very lucky benefit of having one of the mental health clinicians at our site. It is amazing. But I heard George mention wondering if we could fill the positions. And this is one of those instances where having competitive salary and benefits would really help entice people to remain with the district, because I believe we have a fair number of interns in this position, and we would like to keep them and not have us being us be a stepping stone to a different position where there are better salary and benefits. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam President, I just have a comment, no questions, but I'm just reading the working conditions. My gosh, if a person is not capable of doing this, they shouldn't apply for this job. This job, I mean, I'm 95 years old and I can do this. I can get 25 pounds, I can do my hands like that, and I can read and all that. This is a very simple requirement. I think it's a good thing that we're doing this, because if the person doesn't qualify for this type of physical activity, they shouldn't apply. That's my 2 cents.
I agree with you, Mr. Nava, but from a workers' comp standpoint, I'm just going to put my hat on for a minute.
Excuse me a second, okay. I've been involved with requirements and job descriptions and requirements for the job. And that has to do with, because I've never was sued for anything that I required, and I had all, these were triple in what the requirements that I had. I didn't even deal with workman's comps and anybody that got injured or anything like that.
Well, you're very fortunate, Mr.
Yes,
Nava, because I was on the other end of it, and I
Right.
can tell you the difference between 25 pounds repetitively and once a day makes a big difference in many people's lives. And I'm not saying for or against it, I'm just saying that I think, board, I'd like your input on, would we like to table it for 1 week and get some clarification and bring it back at our next board meeting, or would we like to vote?
I would like to table it and bring it back, just
Get a few
these
things
things looked
clarified.
at by an attorney, and then we can move forward from there. I support
I do
the
too.
position, I support everything about it, and I think waiting until the next board meeting to prove it won't hurt anything. Will it?
President McFarland, Mr. Lee, members of the board, no, the timing won't hurt it. The issue is that our next board meeting is next week, which means that the agenda is due in 2 days. So there isn't a lot of turnaround time to work with an attorney. I'm not saying it can't be done.
We pay them enough.
I just don't want to promise. Okay, Paul.
Okay. Otherwise, there are other attorneys out there.
We'll do our best.
Thank you.
Put it
Okay,
on the
any,
agenda as a placeholder.
okay, any other
Yeah.
comments from board members? So I guess we're asking you to
We can bring it back next
bring it back
time.
next time. Is that acceptable? Okay.
It's an action item.
Yes, as an action.
Action item.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Moving on, Dr. Washer, OAI 6.
Thank you.
Thank you,
President
Mr.
McFarland.
Ward.
Members of the board, we're asking you to consider supporting Assembly Bill 75. This is the State Facilities Bond Act. You have been interested in State Facility Bond Act in the past. This would provide statewide funds, could benefit Lodi Unified, so just your consideration to show your official support.
Thank you, Dr. Washer. Comments from the board? Question.
Mr. Khan, this question is for you. How much money has Lodi Unified received from the last statewide bond, if you know that?
I believe 0.
That's kind of what I thought it was.
But for this one, the board has at least 14 million already in queue. If this goes through, it puts us in.
Well, yeah, and I kind of recall that we were shovel-ready in the queue and we got 0. That doesn't mean I'm not going to support it. It just kind of sticks in my craw that we have a statewide bond and we're doing all this. We did our part by passing our local bond and the state didn't come through with anything. So, but like you said, we're going to try again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heberly.
Motion approved.
Second.
Mr. Porter has motioned. Mr. Neely has seconded. Any student comments? Any public comments? Move to vote. Oh, student vote first. I apologize. God, I keep forgetting you.
Yes.
Thank you. I think I'm back over there. I don't know why I looked that way. I'm looking at this. Board approved 7-0 for OAI 7. We are now at personnel matters. I'd like to take a...
No, got one more similar, another bill.
Oh, sorry. Dr. Washer.
I move we approve it. I mean, why talk about it? Want to support it? If you don't support it, vote no.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nava. Mr. Nava has spoke. Do we have a second?
Second.
And Mr. Neely a second. Dr. Washer, would you like to say anything? Anyone have a comment? I dare you, board.
Well, no, I don't.
Okay. Audience, student reps. I guess we're going to student vote. Aye. Board vote. Board approved 7-0, seriously. 7-0. I would like to take a quick, maybe 4 or 5 minute break, and then we will come back to personnel matters.
It's tiring at the end of the day. Oh, I'm sure it's like swollen. But it's just like, you know,
And dessert.
All right, I do.
Value questions? Sally shows me.
Okay, we're back, almost. Close. Okay, personnel matters. We're ready for you, Mr. McKinley.
Mrs. President, the routine personnel matters are presented for your consideration.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Knackstad for the motion, Mr. Neely for the second. Any comments from the public? Any board comments? Board vote. Are you seeing this? Board approved 7-0. We're moving on to report items. One of the things I'd like to do, I know Mr. or Dr. Saul, you're probably ready to go, but I would like to move the contract buyout with Mr. Warren up because our lovely employees have been sitting in the audience and you were last time, and so I'd like to maybe get you out of here before midnight.
Thank you.
Well, I'm getting out of here. We're gonna get out of here when our work is done. How's that? You know what? This is a rowdy side over here. Hello, Mr. Warren.
President McFarland, Dr. Washer, members of the board. I'm returning with information that the board had requested in the executive summary. Let me just preface, if you go to the next page, please. Let me just preface that this proposal is not intended to be a broad remedy for staff shortages. Really, this came to me, one of the coordinators said, hey, we have a contract person, or we have a couple people. One's an SLP, we have some LVNs. We have some people that we would like to be able to see if they could be released. And this was something that needed to be brought to the board. So just to be clear, this wasn't intended to be a remedy to fix all the shortages. This was intended to be, to maybe get one or two people. So, and to see if this was an interest that the board had in getting a couple people. So, anyway, I just want to make sure that the board has that context. The district has open positions that are filled with contract providers, as it says in the summary. Staff recommends that the district work with agencies willing to release contract employees by paying a nominal fee to acquire these contract employees as district employees and requesting board direction. And then on the remainder of it, which you had preview to, has some of the additional information that the board requested.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Any questions from the board?
Just
Yes.
Just out of curiosity, what is considered a nominal fee?
Probably like $5,000 to $10,000. Well, we're paying quite a bit for contract services, so this would enable us to release them.
Got it.
Okay.
Any, Mr. Connector, any other questions?
Yes.
They're still looking while they're working. If anyone has a question, Ann, do you want to come up, or Kelly, go first?
I'm just curious, after having been in an IEP where the consultant obviously wasn't really in my room when she wrote everything up, where are these people going to be placed? Are they going to be teachers? Are they going to be just more people to come and sit in your room and write reports that are inaccurate? And I'm sure they were paid more than a nominal sum for their work, but they were inaccurate.
I really don't understand your question.
Okay, so when you pay the nominal fee, these people are released and they come to our district. Are they coming as teachers, special ed teachers? Are they coming?
No.
These are speech language therapists.
Oh, so we're going to
So
have more people to do that?
They're going to come on and join us as LPPA.
My misunderstanding.
So these are people that we're currently contracting with. I'm just saying there are some people we contract with that were like, we would never consider them.
Mm-hmm.
And there might be one or two a speech language pathologist or a licensed vocational nurse where we're like, hey, this is someone that would be a great addition to the district. They would need to apply, but to release them from their current contract, we would either have to wait 6 months to a year, sometimes up to 2 years before they could even be considered to apply for a position.
Okay,
This is a proposal for being able to buy them out of their contract.
but maybe if we raised everyone's salary in general?
Well, that's not,
Anyway, thank you. Hi.
Hi, Ed.
I believe, I just wanted to comment, we're getting their contracts to them, for them to come work for Lodi, but I know that 4 SLPs left last year and went to Stockton Unified, and they got a $10,000 raise by going to Stockton Unified. So maybe instead of paying the nominal fee to the company, I do that.
thank you.
Thanks.
So I believe it's on the last page of the summary. It talks about this, they're required approximately 6 months to a year notification. If these people are contracted out and we're, in essence, wooing them to come work for our district, is the 6 months to a year from their contract and buying it out worth the money versus putting it towards a higher wage and salary for SLPs? The other question I have is, it says has expended approximately $1 million to cover the contracted SLP. That's for the contracted services out, is that correct? So imagine what we could do if we took that million, put it towards that, and if we're grooming any to stay with us 6 months to a year, and then put that million towards, you know, those that we have to keep them here in our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I see 2 more people. Come on up.
Can I give you guys something? Am I allowed to
You
give you
can-
handouts?
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, to Michelle.
Thank you, Dr. Marshall.
Sorry, I wait until you guys have them all.
Go ahead.
Okay, so dear, I'm Michelle Ono, I'm the speech therapist at Larson. So President McFarland, Dr. Washer, members of the board, Mr. Warren, I'd like to take a moment of time tonight to share some information and thoughts on behalf of the speech language pathologist group. Before I start, I'd like to reiterate that we really do appreciate your shared concern and willingness to address the district's critical shortage of speech language pathologists. We have reviewed Mr. Warren's information, and in his proposal, he reported salary ranges for comparable districts in the area. But he did fail to include additional information regarding the differences between like the work days and hours, the workloads, and differences in staff supports in those districts. He also neglected to provide clarification for how those comparable salary schedules are broken down. So if you only look at the salary ranges between districts, you are comparing apples to oranges. In my email to each of you, and in the handout we provided, you can see Lodi Unified's SLP salary schedule is not competitive, especially in the early and middle years of service, when compared to Tracy Unified, Elk Grove Unified, Stockton Unified, and San Joaquin County Office of Education. In looking at year 5 and year 10, the year 5 salary in Lodi Unified is $11,000 less than the average salary, while the year 10 salary is $16,000 less than the average salary presented. Additionally, the difference in cumulative salary over 15 years is worth noting. An SLP that devotes their first 15 years of service to Lodi Unified makes $40,919 less than if they'd worked for San Joaquin County Office of Ed during those years, $95,573 less than if they'd worked for Stockton Unified during those years, $146,282 less than if they'd worked for Elk Grove Unified during those years, and $552,000. Sorry, this is a really big number that I'm having a hard time grasping. My year 4. $398,552 less than if they worked for Tracy Unified during those years. We understand that the SLP shortage is not unique to Lodi Unified. However, neglecting to address the systemic issues causing these shortages does appear to be unique among larger districts. In the last 5 school years, 15 SLPs have resigned and 16 SLPs have retired. When calculating attrition, within the last 5 years, 31 SLPs were hired between 2016 and 2021. Of those 31 SLPs, 7 have resigned and 1 has retired for an attrition rate of 26%. Specifically, within the last 3 years, Lodi Unified has lost 6 experienced SLPs. 4 SLPs with 9 to 11 years of service were lost to Stockton Unified. 1 SLP with 18 years of service was lost to the San Joaquin County Office of Education, and 1 SLP with 8 years of service was lost to Elk Grove Unified. The primary reasons for this attrition rate are lack of a competitive salary schedule, particularly in the early and middle years of service, and lack of affordable medical benefits, particularly for speech-language pathologists who must obtain health insurance for their dependents. So tables B and C in that handout have more detail regarding the cost of medical benefits. There are a lot of employers out there for our qualified SLPs to move to. We continue to lose early and mid-career SLPs at the highest rates to our neighbor Stockton Unified. Stockton Unified SLPs have manageable caseloads, shorter work days at 6.5 hours per day, speech-language pathology assistants, the SLPAs, that provide support, and they reach their top salary in 10 years. In contrast, Lodi Unified has the lowest hourly rate and the longest workday for their SLPs. With our current SLP salary schedule, Lodi Unified SLPs do not reach their top salary until year 20. Additionally, Lodi Unified continually maxes out the caseloads of employees and provides minimal SLPA support. While our district currently employs 4 SLPAs, they are predominantly assigned to middle schools and or high schools to support contracted teletherapists. Although there are many wonderful things about Lodi Unified, these factors are placing us at a huge disadvantage to relative to nearby districts. Our Lodi Unified SLPs love Lodi and do not want to leave Lodi in order to attain a fair and competitive salary schedule. Many of us live in Lodi and have grown up in Lodi. We are proud to work in our community, and we look forward to working with the district to come up with solutions to attract and retain qualified speech-language pathologists in a fiscally responsible and fruitful way. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Why is this different than what we have on our, what's that?
She's only going to step 15.
Right, I see that on here, but,
I think that's the question you have to ask for Mr. Waller.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bobby Abel-Smith, and I am here representing Lodi Pupil Personnel Association, or LPPA. Tonight, Dean Black, who's usually here, is still in recovery, so you get me tonight. I just want to share that we support our speech-language pathologist subgroup, and the information, you asked a good question, that information was collected by the Lodi LPPA in our research that was done. We did a lot of research at multiple levels, and this was just data that we happen to have on hand that we proposed a proposal to the district, and we are in negotiations, and we are eager to hear back, a response to that. So we don't want to, appear to undermine anything that's happening there. We do appreciate the districts working with us, but we want to. The questions that I have for LPPA is one to say that we support our speech language pathologists, but also I think it's confusing, as many items are on the agenda. What's the point of this buyout? We understand that you want to get more, an extra LVN or an extra SLP, but they're already working for us and we're already paying for them. So we're confused about what's the real buyout. How much money are we saving? If we're not saving any money, then what's the point of doing the buyout? If we're not getting a contract for them for a certain number of years, then what's the payoff? That's where we're concerned. It sounds like we're expending a lot of money for no benefit, and that money could be used in a more fruitful manner, and that's where the disconnect is happening.
Great, thank you so much. And in clarification, I think this is, again, a report item, and it's an option for us to consider or to ask more questions of, and I think that's the point of this. That's why we're asking questions. Any additional board member questions?
real quick. I'm going to ask, well, there's a big difference between this and what's on here, and I think I see where it's at, but I don't see these two arguments as being mutually exclusive. Why would you want to be able to buy out a contract? Because you've been working with somebody and they're really good and you have that already. So it might be worth the $5,000 to $10,000. And you can go ahead and work on the salaries as well. The two, in my opinion, are not mutually exclusive. But I want a little more in-depth about this pay. First of all, how many speech language pathologist positions, and I'll switch to SLP from now on, do we have in the district?
The FTE, 41.23.
41, okay. All right. And so, to raise the wages on those, it's not going to break the bank, I don't think. But I think, and I completely laud your efforts on this. You know, I think you're doing a magnificent job. You see issues and you go out there and you try to find innovative solutions for them, and that's what we need, Paul. So thank you very much for that. And like I say, these two are not mutually exclusive, so I think we ought to.
Any other board comments? Mr. Porter.
Was it Miss Ono, is that correct?
Yes.
First of all, I want to applaud you for taking this step forward, very courageous, and your information has been very helpful. And it's not easy to come before the board and speak and present this, especially with your director right there as well. But I'm really proud of you with your passion and your idea of trying to make LUSD better. So I want to thank you for all that and all of your other cohorts, SLPs, together. I had a quick couple questions. One is is that correct?
Teletherapy?
Okay, is that done through computer?
Yeah, I mean, they do have some remote services, and that's what she was referring to, is that SLPs are in person with the student and working with...
Well, she said SLPAs.
Yeah, speech language pathologist assistants.
Assistants are working with somebody through the monitor, is that correct?
Yeah, well, they'll be like someone working virtually, and there'll be a speech language pathologist assistant that will be in person with the student, and it will be carried out.
Okay. Now, you told Mr. Neely that you had 41.23. 23. How many do we need?
How many do we need?
Yeah.
Not a wish list.
No, I mean, obviously you have a number you have to hit, right?
I mean, we have specific ratios, and like right now we're kind of hovering, close to meeting that ratio. So right now what we have is providing the coverage, but I mean, we're close.
Okay, that's not answering my question. How many do you need to hire within our district?
Oh, how many do I need to hire?
Yeah, so we're not doing telemedicine and all that.
Well, I mean, that's a complicated, when there are different types of ways of filling it. So
Sorry,
I mean,
Mike, did you say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it depends on who you talk to.
Yeah.
How many do we need? You could get 20 different answers, so I'm not sure when you say.
Well, I mean, does he have a number of students that need SLP?
He does.
And then how many SLPs do we need, is what I'm saying.
I'm saying the number that we currently have is providing the legal coverage. Is that 41.2?
Okay, I guess I didn't phrase my question.
I don't understand your question.
Very good. Thank you for being honest. We employ how many?
41.23.
How many should we employ in our district other than doing contract work?
The contracts are filling unfilled positions.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay. So you can jump in on the end and speak to them, because I'm getting upset right now.
There's a number that are ours and a number that we contract.
Yes.
You put those together and that's telling you how many we have.
Yes.
So how many?
Yes.
And that also tells you how many we need to provide services. Is that kind of where you were going?
I was just wanting to know, how many do we employ and how many are we contracting out?
Approximately 6, well, I mean, it's listed on there, approximately 6.7.
6.7.
So 6.7 you need.
I'm sorry, what?
To have,
Means 7.
Okay, that's what I was saying.
Okay.
that helps you a lot.
Okay.
That was my other question.
Can I pause for a minute and let Miss- oh, no,
Love to hear it, please.
Sorry, on the front sheet of the handout that I gave you, in the very first paragraph, we pulled numbers from SACE, which is our Special Education Information System, on January 27th, 2022. And based on the number of students currently with direct speech and language services in their IEPs, there are 44.5 speech language pathologists required to cover those services. We currently have 33.8 district employed speech language pathologists. That includes 2 assigned to the preschool assessment team, so those are not providing services. And then we have 10.7 open FTE. That's a little bit higher than his 6.74. Yeah. Because we have 3 retirees that come back on a year-to-year basis, a contracted basis, kind of, but they're retirees. So there's 10.7 openings. 3 of those, 3-ish, I don't know how you have an ish person, but 3-ish of those are covered by contract or by retirees that have returned, right. And then the rest of those are filled with contracted SLPs. We just had 2 more contracted SLPs hired in person, so I'm not exactly sure on the number of in-person contractors, but it should be somewhere around 4 to 5, maybe 6. And then we have the rest filled with teletherapists. They aren't all full-time contracts. Some of them are part-time contracts, so they're kind of cobbled together to be a 1.0 FTE.
So about 25% of this is outsourced. Sure. Of the position.
Sorry, yes.
Correct?
Is that fair, Mr. Warren?
I mean, historically, we've always had retired people that have come and they aren't considered open positions.
Now, my last question, and I'll stop talking, is the caseloads. Is that a state requirement on how many you can have?
It's part of Ed Code, yes. And it's an average of 55 students, unless you have an exclusive preschool caseload, which is an average of, or a hard cap of 40. We don't have any specific devoted SLPs to a preschool caseload, so we weighted, part of our contract is a weighted number for a preschooler, and it takes that 55 and the discrepancy down to 40 and divides it, and it comes out, so it weights the preschoolers at about 1.3.
Right.
And that's how our caseloads are.
Do you have some SLPs that are over and some that are under, so you get that average? Because I taught high school and...
Yeah, we have some SLPs that are up around 70. I'm currently around 60. And then the SLPs typically with the lower number caseloads are typically split amongst different school sites. And that's really hard to calculate when you have 55 at one school versus having 55, but you're at Van Leo Silva one day and you're at Larson one day. The drive time in between really cuts down on how many services you're able to provide, and the meeting scheduling makes it more difficult. So I mean, that's not technically part of Ed Code, having a split caseload amongst different sites, but I just thought I'd plug that in there as well.
Thank you.
One more question. Did you say that Stockton Unified paid $10,000 bonus?
$10,000, they got a raise of $10,000 immediately.
That was between the year, I believe those SLPs were in those mid to early years of service, which is in my speech, where year 5 and year 10, the discrepancy of 10,000 and 16,000. Yeah, so it depended on where they fell in the salary schedule and the number of steps. So if you are over 10 years or 20 years of service, there's not a huge discrepancy between what you're making in Stockton Unified and what you're making in Lodi Unified. But for me, who's at year 4, it would be almost a $11,000 jump in salary for me to move to Stockton Unified.
Thank you.
But we do top out.
A little bit more, yes. But when you look at what it...
I understand. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. What I'd like to do, board, is when we have our questions, I'd like to direct them to Mr. Warren. I thank Ms. Ona with her vast knowledge, and I appreciate you coming to our podium, but I would like to make sure we don't turn this into a town hall, because Mr. Warren has a report to give us, and I love our questions. No, I want to make sure we stay on track. Thank you, Mr. Warren. I was talking to Mr. Megan. Thank you.
Well, and just as I said in the beginning, I mean, that there may be broader issues about, coming up with a remedy. My purpose in coming isn't to address all of those, and many of those things have to be addressed in other venues. I'm really just coming to see if the board has an interest in a small way, looking at a handful of people to do this. It would still have to come back to the board for consent, but if the board has no interest in doing that, then I'll walk away from this and say, that's it. If the board is like, hey, this is an innovative way, this might be a way to get somebody or a couple of people.
I got lots of comments.
Okay, yeah,
Here,
I understand exactly what you're saying, and I applaud you for what I consider thinking outside the box. Salaries and the way of, should I call it hijacking some outside people, inducing outside people to come in, and increasing salaries are two separate issues, I think. And for this issue, I think it's a good idea. It's worth exploring. So I thank you.
Great. Mr. Beverly.
Thanks. I do see this as another option to kind of fill those vacancies, which I guess raises a question for me, is that we get them to be released from their contract company. Is there any kind of guarantee how long they're going to stay with us?
Oh yeah, that is good.
Is it 6 months? Is it a year? Is
Well,
it,
I mean, we put them-
I'm free. I mean, what?
It would be, I mean, we would go through the usual process of interviewing and hiring them, and then they would be put under contract, which would be for a year.
For a year?
Yeah.
Okay. But then, of course, after that year, they can go where they want to.
They
If
could.
they decide that's what they want.
They could.
Okay, thank you.
Any more board questions?
I mean, I'm obviously emotional on this issue, but if we're already paying for this service, if we need it, why would we buy them out? If we can't attract them. So if we're attracting them in a different avenue, then why don't we just continue with what we're doing, backfilling it through the contract instead of spending money buying their contracts out? As you said, there are other things that we could look at to entice people to come to Lodi to fill those positions. That's just my statement. So you brought this twice, Mr. Warren. I appreciate all that you've done. I'd like to see it just die. And I think we have other ways to just be, either you continue doing what you're doing to the contract and the tele-SLP until we can get attractive enough in terms of salaries and benefits to get the right people.
I would just say this one thing. I think that even if it were the most appealing position, there's still a chance that we could be short people. I mean, there have always been shortages for a variety of reasons. So we could create the perfect conditions. I mean, again, this isn't the venue that would be discussed or decided, but that wouldn't guarantee that we would get all of those positions filled.
All right, thank you.
Any additional comments by the board? Well, I'll wrap up by saying again, I applaud the outside the box. I think they are mutually exclusive, as my other board members are saying. I say it regularly that we don't have to be the top paid position, but we need to be competitive, and that is for a discussion for a different day on a different venue. I would like to see us get some additional information on this or continue to move it forward and analyze it. Mr. Warren, I know you've massaged this and I know you will continue. I do understand what you're saying, Mr. Porter, about if they're already here and we're already paying them, what's the benefit of it? But outside of education, this kind of thing happens a lot. And so it might be a little new to education, but there's traveling nurses, traveling doctors, traveling insurance agents. There's all kinds of different people for a variety of reasons that take those jobs. My concern is that we lure them here, we pay the money, and then they bounce someplace else. They've used us in the middle, and that's what I don't want to see. I know that's a chance we will always take, but I think we have some other things to get in line so that maybe they won't want to leave us. Because I think we're a pretty darn good school district, and I think maybe there's some additional areas that we need to work on and talk about so that there's nowhere they want to go but here. But I like the idea of it, and I'm not opposed to it. I just, when you tell somebody, hey, I'm gonna buy you out for 10,000, it feels a lot like a bonus, and if we're not bonusing to get teachers and custodians and cafeteria workers, then I'm concerned. Now, having said that, I do understand the need for it if we decide to go this direction, but I think we've got to have some other ducks in line before we jump down this path. Anybody else? It's really quiet. Okay. I appreciate it, Mr. Warren. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Sorry if I came up with that.
That'd be nice. Okay, we're going back to the tots. Dr. Sally does not want to follow that. Welcome, again.
Good evening, President McFarland, members of the board, and Dr. Washer. If you would pull up, thank you, you did. That's not right. That's not right. I don't know what that is. How that got there. Well, I'm here to inform you that we have peeled the AB 130 onion a couple more layers, and we found another $2.4 million. And we have to provide a plan to spend that money over 5 years. And the funding is targeting the A to G completion improvement for our students, primarily our unduplicated students, but not exclusively. These are one-time grant funds, but they run through 25-26 school year. And they are, again, targeting grades 9-12, but can be utilized somewhat in the middle school to help improve the thinking ahead of time before you get to school so that you're prepared when you come to school. There's a try again. There's a access grant and a learning loss mitigation grant component. They are, oh, it's a little better. Thank you. Next slide. Again, I covered that. Next slide. There's an access grant component and a mitigation grant component that'll show up a little more clearly on the last budget slide. But you can see the bullet items that those are addressing, and access to A to G coursework, and then mitigation in case students are falling behind in terms of credit recovery or grade recovery. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, this slide shows that over the last few years, our A to G completion rate has dropped and under our county. We were at the county level back 3-4 years ago. We have dropped in part due to COVID, but certainly not exclusively. So this funding, again, would target improving that score. Next slide, please. The planned expenditures are for awareness of what pathways to take through high school to get to your career, and for access in terms of developing four-year plans for our students, helping them to understand transcripts and transcript evaluation for our staff as well to help navigate the students through their high school pathway, and then support in terms of tutoring, academic advising, additional credit recovery options, or grade improvement options, because in the case of A to G, you want a C or better, and some B or better. B or better is even better, but so some of it's not just exclusively for recovery from a failed grade. Next slide. Data points that will be monitored are obviously the completion rate, segregated by groups, percentage of students that meet the advanced rigor of AP courses or dual enrollment, and so forth. And then percent of students who recover failing grades to become A to G as well. Next slide, please. This is the summary slide of the budget. You can see that the Access Grant Award is at the top, $1.7 million. The 4 rows from the bottom, the A to G Learning Loss Mitigation Award is $640,000. We've come up with a draft budget by year. You'll notice there is a reserve in most of the years except for the first one, in part due to the fact that this is new and new efforts, and we can't nail down specifically what we're going to be spending in each of these categories. But the funding that would provide for more tutoring or academic advising is there. Some of that, again, is additional hourly time for staff, which we currently struggle in some cases that our staff are pushing the envelope already, and may or may not want that, but we certainly are going to seek to offer it. Some funding in there just for logistics of working through a 4-year academic plan. That's not a sizable expenditure. That's just kind of the logistics of that piece. Test fees could be covered with this, or can be covered with these funds for terms of AP courses and such. And so we currently have some of that for our financially constrained students, but we could cover all students. College career workshops at our school sites. Anyway, there's more there. Credit recovery and grade recovery at the bottom I mentioned. Again, I failed to mention already, I want to thank Cindy Metler, our AVID coach, and our AVID contacts or leads at our high schools that helped formulate this. We've known for a little over a month that this funding was going to be coming, although it was only 2 weeks ago when we actually found out the amount that we were getting. So we were spending several weeks thinking about planning for this without knowing how much money we had. So the week prior to break, we were given our award amount, and thanks to some of the staff that I mentioned, Cindy and the AVID leads, they did some work actually first week of spring break, or whatever break, spring break, and we formulated some of these plans here. So also worked with an individual from Riverside County. He led the webinar for the CDE on this grant. Fortunately, I think that Mr. McGregor and I had the opportunity to meet with him individually. They're doing some really good work that we'd like to consider bringing to Lodi to help school staffs really analyze transcripts to understand what's happening with students, why they're falling behind, or why they're being successful, and help expand upon that. But a really good example that this presenter provided was that when you ask how do you get A to G compliant on your transcript, it's not just checking a box that says you took a to G course. There's a significant process that starts in middle school, just an awareness, and working all the way through staffing and scheduling and counseling, and there's many, many steps to that process. So this would help with that piece. And again, this is specific for A to G. It doesn't exclude career interest as well, but it is specifically targeting A to G improvement. As you can see on that graph, our data has dropped, and we don't like to see that. This is simply information to you. This would come at a subsequent board meeting for approval, and so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Sally. Board, do we have any questions? Wow. Michelle's on her way up, so I'll take a question. Come on in, Michelle. What's that?
I'm sorry?
He's getting.
Break the monitor back there?
Not mine. They're
Oh, I was near there and it was really hot. So I moved away from it. It did, yeah.
Ignore Michelle.
Sorry. Hello, again, President McFarland, members of the board. Couple of things. One, kind of disappointed that the association wasn't contacted to get some further input and then understand there's a time factor. There are some things right away that pop up that come to mind. Something that we discussed while many years ago when Jeff Palmquist was an admin at Lodi High, the PK program, which involved parents and students at middle school as they became freshmen about the process of A through G requirements and testing and all of that. And there was collaboration with area colleges, and love to see that. I know several of the board members witnessed families that went through that process. Two, right off the bat, I'm thinking, well, you've heard from many of my members about summer school and summer school class sizes. You might have more people if you went to smaller class sizes and there were more opportunities for more classes and they could individually work with those students that needed those classes for credit recovery. When those English teachers are grading on a short window, it's much harder. The other is negotiations having to do with the adjunct or tutoring rate that is lower than our MOU rate. So that did not increase. So you might get more tutors if you increase that rate of pay to match the MOU for intersession and summer school. A couple of things that come to mind right off the bat. I don't see here any kind of parent component for our families that may not understand the A through G requirements. And we would hope that in going forward, we would have some conversations about exactly what is the, staff training looking like, and having some input on these over time and before it comes to you. So like further conversations, and I think there are some things right off the bat in the short term that we could increase the spending to get more A through G and students credit recovery in the short term this summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Any other board questions? If there's no questions, thank you, Dr. Sully. Do you want to stay there and jump down to physical fitness? We'll jump around a little bit.
Certainly.
Just so
Happy
you
to.
can.
Thank you, President McFarland. I don't have a presentation on this. This is simply a report back to you that after our discussion previously regarding the physical fitness tests and the PE exemption, communications with the CDE and webinars with the CDE, it was made known about a week and a half or 2 weeks after that board meeting that the CDE made the statement that districts can calculate their own scores. They don't support it, they won't provide any calculation assistance, but they can calculate their own scores and thus they can continue to provide the exemption. So I'm reporting that to you and that we don't really need to make any changes. Our policy already allows that. We have been doing that. It would simply involve our calculation, doing our own calculations of the passing of the 5 of 6 required to get the exemption. So that, again, was news since that board meeting, and I'm just reporting out that we will, with your agreement to continue our current policy, we will continue with that option so that will be an option for students this spring testing and then for next fall's coursework or exemption from coursework. And also they would still have the option of what was brought forward at the last meeting of having an academic exemption or an athletic exemption if they so choose to. Perhaps they failed the PFT exam, they could go that route as well. So this would provide also the option for non-athletes to have a route to an exemption as well. So I think calculating our own scores will get us back to a place pretty close to where we were a couple of years ago. So I'm happy to report that.
Perfect, Dr. Sully. Board, any comment?
Just I support that. Totally. Heard about this.
Michelle.
This is news, as there was no report attached to this. So if I'm understanding correctly, through President McFarland, we can take that test, the student physical fitness test, and calculate our own scores, even though that body index, we can do our own thing with that, and they can then, if they pass that, our own formula, they can exempt out. Is that correct?
Yes, and actually we're following the same formula that was used prior. It's just that we used to upload the data and then the state crunched the scores. We will just be crunching our own scores.
Will that have any impact on any students that fall in the non-binary rule legally that we need to worry about.
As mentioned there, any student that claims non-binary status will be scored against the female metric for that particular individual.
So they have to actually claim that, and I apologize, is that done on a registration form, or when they take the test, do they?
When they take the test.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd love to see, has this gone out to athletic directors or PE yet? After tonight, I guess?
After tonight.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? For Dr.
President McFarland, members of the board, I just want to point out, although Dr. Sully did not put up an attachment report, under the summary, he did explain it a little bit. So I know that doesn't, people don't always go to that when looking at the agenda, but that's just another way to get information.
And when will we communicate this to our sites?
Our folks will start working on it after, we needed to bring it to you first, and then we'll start working on it.
Okay, so that our parents...
ASAP.
Got it. Appreciate it. Any additional questions?
Yeah, I just want to thank Dr. Sully for going through this whole montage and waiting on the state and putting up with all of that. And I appreciate your efforts on it. Thank you very much.
I just want to hear the words, we are going to push this out quickly so that the kids can get their schedule set for next year.
Yes, we'll share this
Very
out
good.
tomorrow.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you.
So do we want to, the million-dollar question is, do you want to take a break, Dr. Sully, and let Mr. Khan jump in, since I've completely destroyed the report section of it by bouncing around? Do you since she's sitting there, do you have a problem with that, Mr. Khan?
He's on a roll.
Dr. Sully's on a roll, let's.
No. Mr. Nava turns into a pumpkin in about 6 minutes, so.
I'm already turning around. 9:30.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. Thank you, President McFarland. The last item I have regards an update to our high school graduation policy, 6146.1. Many of the changes, as you were to, next slide, or next item.
They hate me right now. I'm walking very slowly.
Many of the changes are simply, we went to the gamut template that the state provides, and we just looked at our language, and some of the language in the newest version of the gamut was maybe written a little more succinctly. It was basically, for example, those first two paragraphs. The struck language is essentially the wording found in the second paragraph. It's just a little bit more succinct. Under course requirements, you can see I added in under that first sentence, no, back up, right there, course requirements. I added the words that are in italics and pass to that sentence because oddly enough, there was confusion that I ran into in many cases discussing this about you needed to pass the course, not just take the course. So we added and pass. Scroll down, the next changes are consistent. And again, where you see strikeouts and an italics paragraph after it, generally we're just giving it language from the gamut, a little more succinct version. If you scroll down to the next page, you'll see on bullet 5, simple things like foreign language is not the preferred language for those courses, French and Spanish and such as world language, so we made that adjustment. One of the bigger changes here, I would say probably the biggest change, is down a little bit further under items 8, the paragraph in italics. There's 2 new CDE requirements coming to districts in California, and in 2026 we must begin offering an ethnic studies 1 semester course. It's a statewide requirement. We actually have some courses that meet that mindset. We do need to revise it to align to the new ethnic standards framework, but we will be doing that in the next year or 2. That is becoming a state requirement. And then the next piece is that we have currently our California Healthy Youth Act requires us to provide the comprehensive sexual education, HIV education once in high school. We are doing that in 9th grade physical education currently because that's the only course all 9th graders take. This proposal or change here would marry that ethnic studies requirement to a semester of health, which would have embedded the California Healthy Youth Act requirements. So it would then, as you'll notice on it's the net paragraph, It will replace the current 9th grade requirement in that year because that's the class of 2030 begins in 2026, and that is a requirement of the class of 2030 for the ethnic studies. These courses could be taken in any school year, not necessarily 9th grade, because in many cases seniors have more flexibility in their schedule than other years. So the language here is to, that school year, those 2 ethnic studies and semester health courses would replace the 9th grade only requirement, which is currently in existence and has been for a number of years. Those courses are listed at the bottom of the screen there, that italics. I've added that to this policy language because in the prior policy, those courses were not listed. They were listed in the course catalog, but the course catalog is not a board-approved document, so it was a little fuzzy as to which were the approved courses and which weren't. This will codify that. So this really is probably the largest fundamental change, but it doesn't take place until 2026, so it gives all parties a 4-year ramp up or more, 5-year ramp up, 4-year I guess, to the phasing of out the 9th grade requirement in terms of switching to the ethnic studies health requirement. Those courses would still be offered. All the ABA, health, driver's ed, world geography, so on and so forth would still be offered. But because the state is adding a requirement to our course catalog, we thought it would be wise to make this shift here at this point in time. Next page, if you would, please. And then there's just some other language that's related to the COVID. If you go to the bottom of this, page 3, there's some language that impacted students due to COVID, and that is reflected here. Grade changes and things that we actually started dealing with last year because it impacted last year's seniors, but also impacts this year's seniors who were juniors at that time. And I believe those were the last major changes to speak to. So for your review, and this would be returning next week for approval or vote. It's mainly an update. I spent most of the time there talking about that 9th grade requirement shifting to health and ethnic studies. Most of it is language cleanup.
Thank you, Dr. Saleh. Any questions from the board?
No questions, but great job.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Saleh.
Thank you, Dr. We have one from the audience.
Good evening, Brenda Heinrich. I am a social science teacher at Bear Creek High School, 28 years now, and I'm here with some concerns, particularly with social science and also for English. Both departments have a year-long ethnic studies course. English is theirs, is literature-based. Social science was just approved. It'll be starting next year. One concern is if you generally want to fulfill the intent of the requirement to have ethnic studies, it won't be chopped to a semester. If the idea is to bring recognition to groups that have not been acknowledged throughout history, you've not been able to do an adequate time with only a semester. My other concern is by then force pairing it with health is going to compromise the ability for students to take geography. Currently, that already has been compromised when it was approved for health to move from a quarter to a semester. That now health semester would either be paired with geography or driver's ed with the freshman 101. And doing so is actually going to cost either a driver's ed or geography teacher a teaching position at some sites. But it at least used to be in the board's mission and vision that diversity was important. CP World Geography, that semester class, is the only high school class that talks about cultures around the entire world. The ethnic studies is just focused on the struggles of different ethnic groups within the United States. And we're a globally interconnected world. It's really important for our students to know what's going on around the world, not just for international relations, trade, to acknowledge our students who are from families of immigrants, to help them feel included. So really concerned about how this is planned out. I don't know who discussed it, if it would be possible to actually include people who teach these subjects to bring them into the discussion. I know we would be more than happy to meet and talk, or if it's a something that could be explained to us, how this decision came about, it would be appreciated.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Any additional questions for Dr. Salri? So,
If I may add, I failed to mention, this was discussed at the previous curriculum council meeting, and there was agreement to pursue it.
thank you. What do you need from us, Dr. Washer, on this?
This report item at this time, President McFarland will bring it back for approval. So at that time, we'll ask you to approve the changes. If you have any concerns or suggestions at this point, that would be helpful.
Any concerns or changes, board? I have none.
Well, my concern is always the application and the operational aspect of how this is going to all work out. So I'm looking at this as probably this may morph into something differently later, but it's a plan at this point.
Great, thank you. Dr. Sy, thank you for all your reports. I can't imagine having a week's notice and putting your first report together. I didn't say that at that time, but we're fortunate to have you. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Khan,
Thank you, President.
last but not least.
Thank you, President McFarland.
Oh, Mr. Novice says make it short.
We're saving you money. We recommend you approve.
Right, exactly.
Thank you, President McFarland, members of the board, Dr. Washer. You see in this room 5 pieces of evidence of what this team of Director Cook and Supervisor Turner can produce. I think the COVID experience really proved their worth in that these signs here over Mr. Nava's right shoulders were discussed on a Tuesday, and they were heading out to 51 sites within a week's time at substantial cost savings versus buying it in the market. So this reorg that's in front of the board will be explained by Director Cook and Supervisor Turner.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, President McFarland, members of the board, Dr. Washer. We made it. It's been a long
I
night.
apologize.
That's okay. That's fast. We're here tonight to present a report regarding the need for an additional FTE in the print shop. My name is Cricket Cook. I'm the Director of Purchasing and Central Services. Central Services includes the warehouse, the print shop, and the mailroom. This is Jesse Turner, and he is the supervisor of the Central Services. When I started with the district 21 years ago, my hair wasn't gray, and print shop was known as the district's Kinko's. Some people might not know what Kinko's is or even remember what it is. A flashback. They closed in 2008, but all Kinko did was make copies, and at the time that was the print shop. Jesse actually started in the print shop at 19 years old in 2006. And he remembers making copies and running an offset press to make business cards, letterhead, and envelopes. And that was it. Stapling, binding, finish work was all done by hand. With infusion of technology, the print shop today no longer makes just copies. If you look around the room today, we brought some samples of what the print shop can do now. So Jesse's gonna Vanna White for me. You'll see two miniature measure signs, the measure U and the measure L. We've made bigger ones that are located at the sites, and the print shop made these. Now the print shop has the capability to make 5 feet wide by forever feet long, make these signs. Not only does the print shop print these items, but we design the signs, like Leonard said. You know, he'll call me the next day after a board meeting and say, this is what we need. The print shop designed the banner stand and the A-frame stands for the COVID. Our upcoming and fairly new item that has been really popular the past couple of years is the yard sign. It's behind the A-frame. There you go.
I think Vanna has an easier
So these become really popular with our graduating students
Yeah.
and also getting more information out. What Jesse's going to do now is pass out personalized backpacks to each of you with some samples of everything, some of the things that the print shop has done.
Everybody's name on top of it.
I love it. I love it.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. 1 second, I didn't forget anybody.
It's got the new logo. Wow, that way
It has a new logo.
Oh, yeah.
It already has a new logo on it.
It must be so bad. Thank God.
We were panicking. So, Mr. Heberly, I'd like you to open your backpack.
No, I don't like the open screen.
If you look in your backpack and pull out one of the shirts,
Wow.
I'd like you to take a look at that logo. That logo was pencil drafted by a student, sent to the print shop, and the print shop staff worked with those students who now use that shirt in their computer science competitions.
Computer, if you can't see it, it says Lodi High Computer, or Comp Science.
Comp science, yes. So if you go to slide 2 for me.
Look how cute Ansel Adams. Oh.
Good thing they didn't put that thing down.
Yeah, no kidding.
You guys had me sweating for a little bit.
I know. So this slide represents our revenue and expenses over the past several years. You'll see that the print shop continues to make a profit. And in 2021, we expended $60,000 in overtime. In addition to that, we outsourced over $100,000 worth of work because we just didn't have the manpower. And the presentation before from Dr. Solly lets us know that more work is coming. We saw a budget for $5,000 for A to G poster awareness. Slide 3. So this just represents our request for an additional FTE in the print shop to meet the needs of the district. And I'm happy to entertain any questions, and we'll bring it back for approval at the next meeting.
I'm staring at it, I'm sorry. Who wants to go first?
If we hire another print shop technician for just under 50,000, we're gonna save how much on all the overtime?
Our overtime in 2021 alone was $60,000.
Okay. And we won't need that any longer with this guy.
Correct.
Yeah, that's enough, that's all I need here. Thank you.
Plus we get some more backpacks, right?
You know, I really like the logo now, so I'm gonna change my vote. But great presentation.
They'd like their backpack back.
I love how you put things together. I'm definitely in favor of this, so thank you so much, and especially all your hard work.
Thank you.
Mr. Frame, with that look.
Back when I was a baby DA, doing freely,
It's 10-10.
if we had kind of a weak case, first thing we would do was we'd mark a map as an exhibit. We'd hand it to the judge, and the judge would sit there and fiddle with the map through the entire hour presentation, and we'd be distracted. I'm not suggesting that by passing out these backpacks, this was intended to distract us. But Jesse, we know, obviously, he's a fan of Got Kids. He's delivered our Keep Kids Connected items on many different times, and we greatly appreciate it. Cricket, we finally meet the world famous Cricket. So many times you say, who's responsible for this? And they say, Cricket. And now, 10 years on the board, I finally get to meet you, and yeah, you can have whatever you want, so. I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Yeah, just, again, thank you. You guys do a tremendous job over there, and we really appreciate it.
I forgot to mention too, the posters of the student representatives out front.
Ah.
We did those as well.
Oh, nice.
you.
Mr. Heberly.
Thank you. Nice job. It is nice to have these kinds of things in-house because the schools do ask for a lot of things, and it's nice that we can accommodate that. One of the questions I have is a lot of the high schools used to have their own, basically, copy center. And now they don't. So, and I'm guessing that probably middle schools, because they've got large student populations in them also, might have had a smaller version of that. So how does the print shop help the classroom teachers at the site or help the sites do what they need to do for instruction?
So right now, with the use of technology, we're actually seeing classroom printing going down. We can actually print cheaper in the print shop when they send us the jobs. Do you want to speak a little bit more to that?
So I think they used to like email them to you.
Yep.
And okay.
Yep.
And that'll still work. I mean, our elementary schools, of course, still greatly utilize us from everything from little storybooks, anything like that. You are correct, the high schools did do a lot of their printing on certain things, but we're here to be utilized for the entire district, and we really do all the printing as much as we can bring on. We make sure it gets taken care of.
Where do you store your Rizzo machine?
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
I've been around.
Oh, I remember Rizzo.
I married a teacher. I was the Sherpa.
It was a ditto maker.
My mom retired from the 3rd grade, and I used to help her with the ditto machine.
Oh, yeah, I've done that. Ditto, that's it.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking about. The ditto.
I know Michelle's back with a question. Joe, question, Michelle back.
Looks good.
While Michelle's making her way, but I just want to thank you both. I know you're longtime employees, and I appreciate that you've stayed the course with Lodi Unified and the work that you do, because the number of years that you've given to Lodi Unified, definitely you know where we've been and where we need to go, and appreciate it. Michelle?
Yes, thank you. And if it's okay, I'd shout out, because I remember when I brought my teacher's manual to put it into a binder and handed him this AB 477 or 462 stuff, and he drilled holes in it so it would, go in the binder, and all by hand and stuff, and how many things have been duplicated. On the print shop, from the report I understand, it's asking for another FTE, and where would that come in the budget?
If you go back to slide 2, I think, this pays for itself. Just not only saving on overtime, but also doing stuff in-house rather than farming it out. So cost is a big thing, but honestly, the speed to market too is crucial, especially during the COVID time. So cost savings, speed to market, the FTEs paid for from savings, I can go on and on.
So as I looked at this slide, it was that the print shop is making money in order to pay for another person. Okay. And I think our print shop and the things that they do are phenomenal. However, I have been told by teachers that they are told they can only do t-shirts and certain items through their print shop, where the cost from their clubs and stuff could be outsourced cheaper. So I worry that, we're then charging more for some of our clubs for the profit. But I just have secondhand knowledge, so I'm not sure how much of that is going on. I think what you held up on display were beautiful pieces, but for some of the clubs, they need something cheap. So I just hope that we don't limit others. And again, thank you for.
Mind if I follow up?
Yes. Address that.
I just wanted to follow up on that. One thing is, all of the shirts, apparel orders and everything, we are bringing them to the print shop for review. And we will never charge a site more money if they can get a better deal on an outsourcing. We're mainly there just to compare costs. If we can match a cost that an outside company is going to do, let's keep the district dollars within the district to pay for more salaries, everything. But no, we will never hold up an order or charge a site more just to use our services.
Thank you very much.
Very much for that information.
Des, are you back there? Did you have a question?
Yes, I had a question.
Come on up.
Hello, Desiree Wise here with CSEA. So I was going to ask the same thing where the funding was coming from. It wasn't clear to me where exactly it was coming from. So you guys responded with the school sites need services, or the district office staff or whatever needs services or products. And you guys are then generating revenue from the school sites to pay for a position.
Similar to nutrition services, we're self-sufficient.
Self-sufficient, okay, because that was going to be my next question is, the delivery drivers that work in the warehouse are still working on a reduced work year. And if it's a central services reorganization, I don't want them to be forgotten. And I keep talking about people that have not been restored since the budget cuts. There's principal secretaries still working on, our typist clerks still working on a reduced work year. The delivery drivers, some of them are still working on a reduced work year. Is there any intention on restoring those positions? And why just a tech?
I understand your concerns, Des, but on this one we were talking about, I hear what you're saying, but I don't know that that falls under this topic. Am I?
Well, it's a central services reorg, so that's all part of their group, right? That's all part of their department. And it could be included in a reorg.
Dr. Washer, would you like to comment on that?
Desiree, I thought I heard you say something about school site office staff.
Oh, maybe I did.
That's not this topic.
No, but I'm specifically asking about the delivery drivers that are part of their group that are still working on a reduced work year.
That's not part of this item.
It's called central services, but there's 3 departments within central services. It's print
Okay.
shop, mail center, and the warehouse.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Des. Any other comments? Again, thank you both. What do you need from us to move forward? It will come back as an action item?
Yes.
Yes, got it. Moving on. Sorry. Employee group reps. Who wants to go for dinner? Are you going to speak for CSEA? No? Okay. Michelle, you're back up.
Good evening, and I want to first thank the board for recognizing and acknowledging the loss within Leah. It has been, we've had too many this year, and it's been hard. And I do want to acknowledge both administrators from both sites. During the 2-week break, Jamie was available, reachable, to make sure that she had a way to communicate with her members, their families, next steps. And I just have to say that both those administrators from Needham and Westwood have shown a great deal of grace, compassion, and strength for their groups, their school sites. With that loss, that is something that there is not a handbook, and there is not something that tells you the next steps. Do want to acknowledge again that the board approved an EAP program for individuals for counseling and grief, and would hope that we follow up with communication in these times of crisis to make sure that that's available. So thank you. And thank you for the recognition tonight, allowing members to speak. You know, many a time I said, you know, we're one, we're in this together. But my members are really feeling a sense of disrespect in what we've seen at bargaining. I think tonight several members have shared with you some very personal stories. When we met together out front this evening for them to express their words and posters, share their stories to come up. I know you could not call on all of them, but there are some that were just heartbreaking. For a second-year teacher to tell me she has $34 as a single mom in her bank account to make it until payday is heart-wrenching. And I think you've all looked at that early salary schedule and know that that's hard. And everyone's choices and what they do are choices that they make. I hope that in going forward, you reach out and hopefully those that didn't get to speak email you about their stories, about what's going on, about leaves and why it's important, about losing, you know, early health benefits. A teacher who had to attend a wedding that he was in as best man for his own brother. You know, do I take the time or not? That's key. That's a once in a lifetime event, and if they have the sick days, allowing that. The other thing that I think we need to kind of step into and step forward towards looking at the start of a brand new year is the social emotional learning for the adults within your employment. They have been dealing with students in trauma for 2 years, and that has taken a toll. And sometimes it takes a toll physically, sometimes emotionally, and as we know, there is a teacher crisis, and whether they're a speech teacher, an elementary teacher, a high school teacher, we would hope that you would look towards staff development and services that would help with that trauma that they are dealing with on a daily basis with their students. That is, we are hearing over and over again, students are still struggling at home with things that are going on at home, and the teachers do not have all the tools in their toolkit to be going forward with the best physical and mental ability, and we hope that something can be done going forward for them next year. Again, our special ed teachers' workload, more things keep getting added on. We have RSP teachers that are over on caseloads, and this is the only number by state that is written in law. We cannot go over the 28. So we really need to look at what we're doing and asking the hard questions. How can we still be doing this? Recently, teachers were told that we're preparing for the testing. The state's made a video. ARE had talked about how this would likely roll out at staff meetings, and the principal would not have to, excuse the expression, fly by the seat of their pants to make sure that they addressed all the topics. There is a video to watch. The teachers are being told, do it on your own time, just like the Keenan videos. Again, the SIPS assessment, we are in disagreement that those forms should be used in any form until that is negotiated. It is an observation, it is an evaluation, it is being done by peers and outsourced. We want it to stop. We have heard about co-curricular. We know that it's at the bargaining table. One of the things that I want to, the story that was shared with me tonight, I want to end with. I saw the great things that students have done at some of our high schools, and you want a relationship within that body. You've done some great things at building Lodi High to this new building and Tokay's new gym, and you're expanding that, and you're expanding that body as a whole, that campus. Well, some of our people who work towards Link Crew, freshman orientation, all of those things that build that relationship in, are not being fairly compensated. The number of hours that they start with the training, they do the lesson planning over summer, they do the training of students, is not a fair compensation. And they're being told, you know, take it to the union. There's nothing I can do, my hands are tied. So I'm bringing it to you. The number of hours that we expect a teacher to put in for some of these co-curricular activities, like Link Crew, is not being fairly compensated for the time. No teacher should be working for free. It is a profession. So we'd ask that you treat them like professionals and compensate them for their time respectfully. We do want to say to all those out there and to your friends that may be going into education that Lodi is having a job fair this week, and we are excited to once again have it live in person, be involved in the interview process, and welcome new hires to talk about our experience working for Lodi Unified. So I want to thank Personnel Department, I believe is leading it, for our involvement again as a liaison between people coming in. And if you know of anyone going into education, to remind them that we have the job fair coming up. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you, Michelle, I appreciate it. Are there any other employee groups represented that want to speak? Okay, we'll move on to board members. Who's connected?
I just want to make sure that this is on your radar, Dr. Washer. I'm sure it is that have we looked at some of the issues that we may have when the start time changes, for I think high school and junior high school, like busing and after school? I mean, I don't expect you to, you're shaking your head, so you're aware, and we're looking at all the problems that we may have. Okay, that was it.
Great, thank you, Mr.
Thank you. I came prepared tonight with statistics and all kinds of stuff to talk about student achievement, because we don't spend enough time talking about student achievement. I got about 15, 20 minutes worth of stuff here, and it's 10:30. This is one of the problems with putting board comments at the end of everything. So I will not do this if I can strike a deal to have student achievement put on the front end of next board meeting under board discussion. Can I get that?
Mr. Neely, could Mr. Neely have his own spotlight
I don't want a spotlight, I want the
Well, that way you
board
have
to talk about it.
I would like the board to talk about, would you like a report item, or would you like an actual?
I want toward the front of the agenda. Student achievement is an important thing and it needs to be talked about. We have some issues on it.
So what you're
And we need to awake people to talk about it. So
okay.
Toward the beginning of the, well, maybe right before the consent agenda.
What about a study session, Mr. Neely?
I'm not waiting any longer. I'm putting it off right now, right?
Well,
We're at a board meeting. I think a study session will be in line, but I want to talk about student achievement next board meeting at the beginning of the board meeting. Can I get that? Can I get that?
President McFarland's okay, we're good.
She said you had to be okay with it.
What I will tell you, Mr. Neely, is when Kathy and I look at, when Dr. Washer and I look at the agenda Thursday morning,
Mhm.
and I see what's there, we will do our darndest to put that in.
Not good enough. Here we go. I'm sorry, it's not. I mean,
Well, there's a lot of things that aren't good enough, Mr. Neely, but we
I'm
worked
sorry,
really hard to get
look,
everything in, so
but
let's.
student achievement is one of the most important things. That's what we're here for.
Absolutely.
And we don't talk about it near enough.
Do you think doing it at 10:39 is gonna get you your?
No,
best
I
response?
don't.
So let's try to get it to the front of a board meeting and work together and.
Well, let's get it. No, see,
I don't want to
it's
bully each
like,
other.
what did Yoda say? Try, do or do not?
We discuss this at a different time.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to leave out of here. But I want some assurance that it's not going to be one of those things again where we don't get to talk about it. It's happened too many times.
Why don't we discuss this at a later time in private?
What?
This is an agenda item. No, these are my comments.
Right.
These are my comments. And
I don't want you to think that we don't want to do.
All right.
What do you think about that you introduced the idea of that? If it's on, if you want to do it at the front of the agenda, that would be probably you kind of initiating it. And I think Mr. Freitas hit on something, really good ideas, in order to really discuss it and give it the time that it deserves. Could we do it at a study session so that people could kind of prepare and offer their input too?
Yeah, that's why I wanted it as a board discussion.
Correct.
And one of the reasons I was bringing this up is because next meeting I'm going to telephone in. And so I'm thinking that, I think we're available on the 12th. Want to do a study session on the 12th? Is that quick enough for you?
I'd like to do it sooner. I'd like to do it sooner rather than later because it's important to Mr. Neely. However, we have 48 hours to put our next agenda together.
Right.
And if I haven't seen what we have, so Dr. Washer, I clearly have to have that conversation. So what I'm telling you is, do you trust me enough to try to work it into our next
Call
one?
me on Thursday. and let me
We'll
know.
talk on Thursday.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. Are we still friends?
Oh, yeah.
All right. You cannot have her. Done.
I just want to make it real quick. I was last night, Monday night, with Principal Lindsay at Millswood. She had an open forum for parents, and Mr. McGregor was there, and I thought she did a great job of trying to look at behavioral issues that are affecting all our schools, and she was very proactive. I sent an email out to everybody today, and how she coordinated with her staff. They were all there, and she had some great ideas. And I think we have some issues, and starting with phones. And I know that we have a policy, but I doubt it's being enforced across the board. And I tell you what, if I was an administrator, or as a teacher, I hate those things. And not everybody enforces them the way they should be. And they're creating nothing but problems on campuses.
Student cell phones?
Student cell phones. No, the rotary phones. I'm just saying, for administrators and teachers, we need to have a policy that
We have hit our bewitching hour.
doesn't have to allow these anymore. So, that's my 2 cents. Principal Lindsay, great job.
Thank you, Mr. Porter.
I concur.
Hold on. We have a few more board members maybe that might have a comment. Anybody down here?
I second that.
Okay.
President McFarland,
Make it quick, Mr. Freitas.
March is Women's History Month. And how do I know that? Well, first off, because I'm a husband, a father of 2 daughters, a grandfather of 2 granddaughters, a son and a brother. But also because one, it's important, and also the great presentation that our media and our app does. So thank you, Chelsea, for recognizing women's history and the great job that you do. Michelle, I'm with you. I was going to bring up the teacher and certified job fair. It's here. It's 3:30 to 6:30. Bring a friend. Bring somebody great, because we got a great place to work. Got Kids, great presentation, great organization. You want to see some great hockey? Come to the Stockton Heat. $10 every ticket bought goes to Got Kids, and you get to see great hockey, and you're going to be real chill because that ice is cold. So April 2nd, Got Kids, Stockton Heat, be there. Mr. Knexted.
Yes, sir.
So great to see you in person.
Oh, thank you.
Much better than seeing it on the phone.
I didn't hear a motion anywhere.
See how they're getting rummy?
Hey.
Mr. Nall, I am trying. They're not cooperating.
I am.
Congratulations on your recovery, and let's keep it going. So,
Mr. Heberly,
glad you're back.
Yes, very quick. One of the things I'd like in a future meeting, probably very soon, is our projected enrollment. What I'm hearing about reduction in FTEs is, to me, I'm sorry, it's intolerable. And it means one of two things. It means either class sizes are going to go up, I'm talking secondary, or it means that there are programs that will not be available for students, and that's just not appropriate. I'm hoping what I'm hearing is not accurate, and we definitely need to discuss what we're doing with FTE in secondary, because it is a completely different animal in how you schedule students in classrooms. We have a lot of pride in what we have done as a board and district in expanding course offerings, and if we squeeze the sites so much, those offerings will not be available to our students. That's wrong. So I would like that kind of in the matrix of getting it on a board meeting so that we can get that information and have a discussion so that we know what our priorities are for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Pardon?
I support it.
Okay, anyone else?
I'm going to follow Mr. D after his. Next board meeting.
You want to follow him?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we've reached that hour. Any other comments from the board? Dr. Washer, Mr. McKilligan?
I dare you.
We're going to adjourn at 10:40. I appreciate the patience for everyone tonight. This was a very large agenda. I would like to say one thing before we go, that when we have public comments, it is not to shut people off or take notes. It is to, I'm encouraging anyone who wants to come to the microphone, if you have additional questions about an agenda item, please contact the person whose name is attached to it and copy me on it, and I will make sure that you get answers. We're not trying to cut anyone off at a microphone. We're trying to expedite the work that this board has to do at our board meetings. And so I don't want anyone to think that we are shutting you down and don't want to hear and don't want to be transparent, because we love the emails. We read all of them. We like the ones that are calm and cool and collected when you deliver your message. And I appreciate Michelle, everyone, and Leah tonight for the way they spoke and conducted themselves at our board meeting. I really, please pass that on. I appreciate it, because it's not always that way. And I think if we don't start emulating the behavior we want in this district, we're going to end up with craziness. So with that, I adjourn. See you soon.
How you practice do?
What a story. So I hate to leave for that.